Gaming news today is all about gameplay. We have brand new gameplay looks at Avowed, along with a lot of positive previews. I want to talk about why I'm being a little skeptical and maybe a little cynical with another round of positive previews because of some things that have transpired recently. We also have brand new gameplay in the theme of gameplay from acshadows. They released a bunch of very short videos showcasing various stealth mechanics. Ubisoft seems to be sort of gearing up for some new marketing, and I actually think it's looking pretty promising. I know some people are pretty concerned or critical or worried about Assassin's Creed Shadows. And Xbox news as well, they added something to xCloud Gaming that has been long awaited, and that sort of happened in the wake of the PlayStation Portal adding cloud streaming in beta to their device. And so hoping those two sort of angles can start to compete and that both services continue to improve. And as always, I have games for your wish list and your radar. So if you like this kind of content, it's a daily talk show. Now, this is taking place on November the 22nd. I'll be gone the week of Thanksgiving. So if you're like, hey, I subscribed to the channel or I got a gifted membership and then everything went quiet, I do that every year for Thanksgiving. So streams will resume as normal on December the 2nd. So always make sure if you're a member to be hanging out in the Discord. It's a way to stay connected to the community if I'm ever out of town. And then you can also throw articles in there. If there's any news items that take place during the week of Thanksgiving, I'd love to commentate on them once I get back. So put them on my radar. If you're here in the live audience, take a quick second and hit the like button. Make sure you hit subscribe and the bell button as well. So the Avowed preview roundup is here. And listen, I'm trying my best to not be the cynic and the skeptic. I really, really am, okay? But I feel like we have been here before. We get a bunch of unimpressive showcases and gameplay that has everybody concerned. We see trailers, we see, gameplay segments, and we're like, hey, that doesn't look all that great. And then all of a sudden we get these previews that are like glowing, right? Redfall did it. Stalker 2 is not a first-party studio, but the same thing just happened with Stalker 2. I was a little concerned. A lot of people, uttered concerns about the game and about how it looked and the graphics and everything, because it started to look like it was getting downgraded. And then the previews for Stalker 2 were glowing, and now, it launched. Redfall was a complete disaster after all the praise that it got. And then Stalker 2 wasn't nearly as bad as Redfall, but it certainly is not where people were thinking it was going to land after the previews. In fact, the timing of the Avowed previews just feels a bit out of pattern. We went and we looked, and I was kind of checking. Redfall and Stalker 2, even Indiana Jones and the Great Circle had their previews landing roughly 5 weeks before release. About a month and a week, right? Avowed is not coming out for 13 weeks, okay? That's basically 3 months. All right? That's a really, really long window of time to be just randomly dropping your previews. And it really seems weird to step right on the toes of an Xbox exclusive launch. This happened the day after Stalker 2 released. Now, it makes me wonder, did they know that Stalker 2 was going to be poorly received? And they thought, okay, we're going to have this sort of, hey, stop looking at that train wreck, look at this instead, get excited about the next thing, right? This feels like a pattern with Xbox. There's these glowing previews, they release the game, it's incredibly disappointing, and then they immediately shift focus to the next thing. I felt like that happened with Redfall, and then all of a sudden everybody was just talking about Starfield and ignoring Redfall. I felt like that happened with Hellblade. Hellblade did not land in the way that everybody expected. It was pretty disappointing, and then everybody starts talking about the next games and the next thing, okay? So I had to get that out of the way. I want that to be a matter of record that I am still very, very skeptical about this game because we've been here before. We all had these concerns and worries and thought, man, something doesn't smell right about Redfall. And then the glowing previews were basically just a bunch of misleading astroturfing that didn't represent the game at all. I don't think anybody's being misleading with Avowed. I think they genuinely had a great time. There's way too many people that came back. Just this morning, I watched a video from Force Gaming. I've never felt like Force is out here trying to just do PR for games. He's usually pretty honest if something disappoints him. I've never felt like I watched a video from him and it's like, oh yeah, this was great even though it wasn't. So I believe that people had a good time, but I'm always concerned that a vertical slice of a game can give a very different impression. So I just want that to be a matter of just record. I was very skeptical about Dragon Age Veilguard. I thought its combat looked terrible. I'm now at like 27 hours in that game, and I love the combat, okay? So I could end up changing my mind, completely changing my mind about Avowed. I just wanted to give you that before I do a quick flyover of the previews, okay? Because the previews were really strong, and I just want you to sort of read these or hear these with that in your mind, okay? Just be cautious about getting super hyped up. This was a 2-hour preview. We started seeing that people had been playing for 6 or 10 hours, and I thought, oh, wow, they really had a large preview. That's really encouraging. It was actually still the normal 2-hour preview, which is very typical for preview events and capture events, but people were able to play a ton, all right? Game Rant's headline says it all. It says, Avowed hands-on preview, now one of my most anticipated games of 2025. In their preview breakdown, they said the following: as someone who was somewhat skeptical about Avowed, it's now one of my most highly anticipated games of 2025. So that sounds like me with Veilguard, right? Like, I was highly skeptical, and then I played it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is way better than I expected. Even the opening tutorial of Veilguard felt pretty bad, and then the rest of the game has felt significantly better. The game really opens up. So this could end up being my experience. Now, I will say this. I want them to get to 60 FPS on the Series X. Recently, they had commentary on this, right? Which is kind of confusing, because they told everybody that, 60 FPS wasn't really going to be needed. They said something to the effect of, like, you don't really need 60 FPS. And this is what they said. Carrie Patel said, I want to clarify 30 FPS on Xbox Series X is not our target. We will hit that at the very least. We are fully into performance optimization. We want to fully deliver a beautiful world at the best frame rate we possibly can. We're working on that right now. So it sounds like they are attempting to get frame rate higher on the Series X, because in the one interview the guy's like, yeah, you don't really need 60 FPS. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, and I also don't see anything in this game that justifies 30. So if they can get it to 60 FPS, I will play this game. Okay, I have decided I will no longer be retreating to PC when Xbox delivers a game at 30 FPS on console. I won't support it. I won't buy it. I won't stream it. I just won't do it. I don't accept that. I did it with Starfield and Hellblade 2, but I'm not going to be doing that anymore. If this ships at 30 FPS on console, I will not be playing it. I will not be streaming it. I hope they can make a change. I hope they can rectify that before, the game comes out. Now, Engadget titled their article, Avowed Preview, Classic Obsidian Fantasy on a AAA Budget. Now, that's a positive headline, but that was sort of my own observations about a lot of this gameplay and a lot of this footage. There's a rigidity, there's a stiffness, there's a sort of dated feel to the movement and the combat. And I know people don't like me saying that, but that's what it looks like to me. The graphics, the textures, the lighting, everything looks very modern, everything looks very next gen. Obviously not the level of fidelity we've seen in more narrative-driven games, but in games that have this number of NPCs and this number of potential interactions, I think the NPC design, the faces, all of it, I think looks quite good for the type of game that it is. However, it still just feels like an old game dressed up in new clothes, and a lot of that has to do with the movement and the combat. Now, Engadget said that everything felt right once they got their wand. Now, this is something that you're going to notice in a lot of the footage. You're going to notice a lot of the footage is either first-person melee or first-person range. There's not a lot of third-person footage out there because I think most people aren't wanting to play that way. They want to play first-person. And so I did notice, though, there was footage out there of somebody in third-person with a wand. I believe it was Fextra Life. And I just didn't think it was that impressive. You look at Hogwarts Legacy, like the level of fluidity and speed and just the combat moment-to-moment feel. It just feels better in Hogwarts. And in this, once they had the wand out, I was like, oh, it does look better. But then they start moving, and there's a stiffness to it. There's a rigidity. I will say ranged combat seems to look the most enjoyable from a lot of the footage that I've seen. Guns and wands especially seem to look the best in first person. I will say, whenever somebody is holding a gun, though, I'm not quite sure why so much of their arm is in the frame. It's like their arm is so outstretched. It looks like you would give yourself I don't know, tendonitis or a cramp. I'm kind of confused on the perspective of why their arm is just so much in the footage. But the third-person wand gameplay and the third-person melee gameplay just looks less impressive. It doesn't look like the game was designed for that, and that's one of the reasons I'm pretty standoffish with this game. I think people are going into this game expecting... Force Gaming basically said, it's all of those things from Skyrim really condensed down into a smaller package. And if you like the first-person combat in traditional game, Skyrim, this is probably not going to bother you. I'm not a fan of the first-person melee combat. Shooting guns makes sense. You hold a bow up to your face. You hold a gun up to your face. You don't generally hold a sword up in front of your face. I've never understood that. It always felt very awkward to me. And again, that's just a preference thing. But the obvious good sign is that people are saying it's fun and feels good. And so if that's the type of game that you're looking for, you're probably going to have a good time if the previews are an accurate depiction of the game. IGN had glowing praise. We're actually using their footage right here. They said that they wish they had more time to play it. They wanted to play more. Sometimes previews leave them at the end. People end their previews and they're like, well, I've got more questions than answers. If a preview leaves you not with questions, but a desire to continue wanting to play, I think that's probably a very promising thing. And GameSpot seems to agree. GameSpot concluded their preview by saying, Avowed feels packed with things to discover for yourself, whether you're following the story or making your own way through the world. What we've seen of the living lands is full of life, and Obsidian's willingness to give you much to discover. That you'll miss some makes Avowed seem like the kind of game it'll be great to get lost in. So again, I'm taking all of these previews with a grain of salt, given the pattern with positive previews versus the release version of a game, right? So I'm not saying the game is going to be bad. I'm saying I've not seen anything in the gameplay footage that has changed my mind about it feeling clunky and rigid and slow, and also nothing I've seen justifies 30 FPS on the Series X. All the set pieces are very contained. There's always a very limited number of enemies on the screen. The lighting and the graphics look nice, but nothing mind-blowing enough to be dropping the frame rate to 30 FPS. So that's kind of where I land on it. I hope the people that are wanting this game to kind of land in that sort of Skyrim, Pillars of Eternity-esque lane, if it lands in that lane and you feel like you get an excellent game, then I'm happy for you. For now, I'm really sort of still staying apprehensive given the pattern from Xbox games and Xbox first party. I think my skepticism is totally valid given the pattern of like really good previews and then the game comes out and is mediocre or bad. That's been the pattern with them for a while now. And so I feel like my skepticism and my cynicism are justifiable. So it's not hate, it's just apprehension. So in the news, though, of new gameplay, we have new gameplay of acshadows, and it's really quick looks, okay? They are getting ready to push out some more stuff, it seems, and they've got these very short videos showcasing various stealth mechanics. There are 7 unlisted videos that hit the Ubisoft channel. Each of them feature very short clips of observing an eagle vision, hiding, crouching, and going prone, using stealth tools. There's a new grab mechanic where you can like grab somebody and drag them to the bushes. There are assassination denials. They even show Yasuke with a bow. And it actually looks pretty awesome. I will say that I think the game is looking better and better. The ability for, here you can see Noe just kind of rolling out of a prone and taking somebody down. And then here is Yasuke with a bow. I think the Yasuke with the bow footage really shows graphical fidelity in this game is going to be quite high. I hope they can maintain good fidelity and performance on the consoles, because these obviously would likely, I'm assuming these are probably PC pieces of footage that have been souped up. We are seeing Xbox button prompts there, but typically that's what you're seeing, especially from Ubisoft. They're sort of renowned for that. But I think this is shaping up. I think the graphics and the detail look good. I think the player animations look fun. I'm really hoping that they are able to nail this game with the extra time. Yeah, there's the new grab mechanic. You can kind of like drag them into the shadows. So I am hoping that they're able to nail this, because this was one of my most anticipated games. And then obviously with everything that happened, the concern would be that it's either not enough time or there's a lot of problems. So I'm hoping they can come over it and get a lot of good work done, because I love the Assassin's Creed games, and that one was looking like it was headed for disaster. So hopefully they've been able to rectify a lot of that. In other news, Xbox news, we have brand new feature, well, a feature that's been long awaited, finally coming to xCloud. Sometime last year, fans of Xbox Cloud Gaming were wanting to know when they would be able to stream the games that they own. Windows Central's Jez Corden was really critical of them on like, hey, you said we were going to get this. When is it coming? Well, it is here. They finally announced there is a list of 50 games that you can now play if you own them. Now, this happened right on the heels of the PlayStation Portal announcement. PlayStation Portal now has a cloud beta. I don't even know the number of games. I think it's around 50 as well, that you can just cloud stream right on the device. I've tested it out. I showcase it here on the channel. Really impressive. So Xbox is saying, hey, we now have more on our cloud streaming. You can now play these 50 games that you own. Now, some folks were initially confused and concerned because they didn't see any Xbox first-party titles on the list. Well, there's a reason for that. Those games are already on Game Pass because they're Xbox first-party, and they are streamable through the xCloud service. So that's a pretty easy reason, right? It's like, well, that's why they're not there. So you can still stream those games. So this is 50 games that you might own that are not Game Pass or first-party titles that are already streamable. Now, one of the reasons that this has been sort of a troublesome thing for both Xbox and PlayStation is you can't just go flip a switch and say, hey, you can stream all these games now. In every single individual game's EULA, the EULA, the End User License Agreement, it has to be allowed. And a lot of these games don't really have a vested interest in updating their EULA to let you cloud stream it. But that has to be something that is agreed. So PlayStation is planning to add this feature as well, where you can play the games that you own, because currently that's not a function of the beta. You just go to an existing list of games on PS Plus that are now streamable. As long as you have PS Plus Premium, you can do it. So both PlayStation and Xbox have a long road ahead. They're going to have to go to every single company in all these various games and get them to agree and update their EULAs to allow for cloud streaming. And it wouldn't surprise me if some of the publishers and game devs are like, yeah, no, we don't want to. We prefer people just to buy the games and play the games because we don't want them to have a diminished or bad experience and have that reflect poorly on the game. So you might have people that just completely opt out. There you go. I've got now games for your wish list and your radar, and this is a mingled bit of news as well as a game that should be on your radar. Path of Exile 2 did an enormous live stream on November the 21st, which was yesterday. Early access is right around the corner on December the 6th, and I continue to say this game looks incredible, and the general vibe around this game is that it's coming for Diablo 4. The Diablo content creators are singing its praises. They seem to be almost in shock at how good and how awesome this game looks in comparison to the big budget of Blizzard and the Diablo 4 troubles that they've been going through. Now, I know Diablo's been trying to get into a better place, and people have been generally happy or at least satisfied with the direction things have been going. But this game looks phenomenal. The moment-to-moment action, the animations, it's dripping with passion. Every square inch of this game seems like it was just handled with just the utmost of care and love, and you can feel it in every roll of the character and every lightning crawling across the ground and every explosion. There is just something about this game that I find absolutely captivating, and I know they're making it a little bit more approachable. Path of Exile, the first game, is sort of known and is notorious for being incredibly complex and using Excel spreadsheets to figure out how to min-max your build and do different things. And you saw the skill tree in the one shot of this trailer. It's pretty big, but they're trying to make the game significantly more approachable. And I'm really, really hoping that this game can sort of scratch that itch for couch co-op for my wife and I, because I loved Diablo 1 and 2 and Diablo 3, and we played Diablo 3 a bunch together, and then Diablo 4 was just absolutely oozing with boredom. I didn't make it past level 17 or something like that. So really hoping when PoE 2's early access hits, dive in December the 6th. On Xbox, on Steam, on PlayStation, you can get in for the low cost of, I believe I'm correct on this, I think it's like $29.99 for a Founders Pack. Comes with a bunch of great stuff. I believe you can even get stuff right now with that in PoE 1 that will then come over. That's why they delayed it. They wanted your cosmetics to transfer. They didn't want anybody who spent money to lose anything. So That's how you can get into early access on December the 6th. I will be jumping in and playing this game and checking it out, and I think that'll be a great showcase. There are people far more qualified than I to stream and commentate on Path of Exile 2. I will be streaming it as a novice and a newbie. Excuse me. So that'll be really helpful to you. You'll be able to kind of see, hey, you know, can a casual dum-dum enjoy this game? Because that's kind of the lane that I fall in. I'm kind of a dad gamer now. I don't need a whole lot of depth, complexity, and thought. I just kind of want to play a game and not think too much. This is probably why I'm enjoying Veilguard more than long-standing Dragon Age fans. It's just a little bit more linear and hand-holdy. And, you know, I'm kind of that casual dad gamer now. I just have accepted that. And if I can enjoy PoE too, then maybe you can too. So we'll be checking that one out. Thank you for saying bless you. Okay, so the next game I have for your wish list and your radar, I stumbled across this. I believe it was a Japanese tweet from the PlayStation Japan account. This is called The Devil Within Satgat. So I'm just going to call it The Devil Within. I'm not sure if I'm saying Satgat right. This game is so cool looking. Okay, so this was in early access on Steam and just released in 1.0, but it is now on PlayStation 5 as well. The recent reviews on Steam are like 100% out of 55 reviews, and it also has a 97% on PlayStation on its launch date, okay? So I checked it out yesterday. All right, it's like a 2, they call it a 2.5D action-adventure platforming journey. It does have Souls-like tag in the name, so it can get a little bit tough in the combat, I would imagine. It's $25, and it's dope. Now, the demo on Steam is probably the shortest demo that I have ever played, but it felt great. The iframes felt very generous and very friendly to the player. I always like that. And the combat just felt awesome. A perfect dodge feels very satisfying. The different abilities you get feel very satisfying. And my only disappointment with the demo was they give you this brand new ability and then you don't even get to try it out. It's like you can grab on to somebody who's far away from you, like if they're up in the air or something like that. So The Devil Within, check it out if this is your kind of game. $25. Again, there's a demo on Steam if you want to try before you buy. Just be fair warned. It is the shortest demo ever. And you'll notice, I never even got to try that out either. You'll notice when he gets a perfect dodge here, a bunch of buttons pop up, and you can then get like a huge attack. Sort of, it's almost like a counter attack on a perfect dodge. So I think it looks awesome. If I wasn't knee deep in a bunch of games right now, I'd be buying this one and playing it because I think it looks so great. So check that one out. And I got one more for you. This one you can help play test. It's called 13Z. So it's literally 13Z, no spaces at all. 13Z, so 13Z. This is an action-adventure roguelike, and you can help play test it right now. If you go to Steam and request to play test it, it literally lets you in right away, okay? My thoughts on it are everything feels fluid and snappy and great. However, if you play invert like I do, if you need to invert your camera or your controller, I had to do that at a Steam level. It's not in the settings just yet, so I let them know that on Twitter. I was like, you need to let people invert their camera. That's kind of a weird thing to leave out of your settings. And if you think I'm a weirdo, I'm sorry. I come from an era where the first game I ever played on a computer was a flight sim with a mouse, and flight sims automatically are inverted. So since then, I've just always inverted cameras in games. I think GoldenEye was inverted by default as well. My thoughts are it would also be great if there was targeting. You can't actually target the enemy. So you like the lock on where you like target and get to circle. There's not even like a soft targeting in this. Like it doesn't do it for you. So it can get a little frustrating where you're having a hard time like keeping the camera. It feels like you're almost babysitting the camera. And you can play it co-op. It had really, really good meta progression. I could definitely sense like, okay, I'm going to invest. I'm going to get stronger. I'm going to get more stuff, going to get more abilities, have different things to try out. And then there's different characters. The different characters dodge differently and do different things. So 13Z felt really great. And again, when it's co-op, it's well worth checking out. I would love to play this game or Windblown with some folks just to see how good co-op feels, because by yourself, I think it feels great as well. So just a quick recap. We walked through some Avowed previews. They all seem to be glowing, but I'm still super skeptical and apprehensive. Assassin's Creed Shadows is dropping new gameplay. Xbox has given you the ability to now play 50 games if you own them through xCloud. And then I gave you some more games for your wishlist and your radar. So that's the news. And now it's time for the discussion. Guys, make sure and quickly smash the like button. We are having a great end of the week. We are heading to a Friday night with Hilly. And apparently I'm being told there is an Assassin's Creed Shadows preview event in January. So it looks like they are starting to ramp up. They're starting to ramp up the marketing. So I got some people to thank. Hanshot first, and so did you. Joker Quinn gets us to 507. We've got stretch goals now for the Hilly Hijinks stream tonight. You're not going to want to miss tonight as a member. If you are a gifted member or paying member, be here tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if this gets high enough, you can make Hilly and I play a game called Limbs, and you can make us play Cuphead, which I'm sure will be hysterically frustrating. And then Gonda Sand renewed for an entire year and bumps the line as well. So that's going to take us to 509. And then Sneaky Wolf gifts 5 members. Thank you so much for doing a 5 bomb, and that takes us to 514. Thank you so much, Sneaky Wolf. And if you guys prefer to super chat, you can still help with the member goal by super chatting. Every 10 super chats, I add my own members to the count. So thank you so much for being here this morning, and try to get us to 200 likes. As a reminder, I will be gone next week. And the gaming news just really came to a screeching halt. So, I mean, we had the Avowed previews. I know a lot of you are kind of checked out on that game for a variety of reasons. I'm staying within the hemisphere of it. I'm staying kind of within the, okay, maybe it will be good, maybe it will be fun. If it's at 30 FPS on Series X, it doesn't really matter. But yeah. Visual Walkthrough says, Paris talked to the devs. They said that the target is not 30 FPS. We are fully into performance optimized mode right now to deliver the best FPS as possible. To me, that says 60 FPS for console players. I think that is an incredibly bad thing to do. I would not do that, Visual Walkthrough. If you're going to take their statements as that you're going to get 60 FPS, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. When games are going to give you 60 FPS, they say it. They just tell you that, yeah, we're targeting 60 FPS in our performance mode. They're not saying that. They're being very generic and vague. I would not at all, anybody who just heard me say what Visual Walkthrough said, don't do that. Do not put that in, don't put words in their mouth. They did not say that. $5 super chat from Jack Garland. I love the Lono's gaming picks at the start of the show. It helps remind me that gaming is about games and not drama. Well, the reason I want to do that every show open is just to show people that there are so many games coming out. There are so many things for you to try, and I try to pick the games that are lesser known. Obviously, Path of Exile 2 is not lesser known, but I want people to know, man, early access is coming. But I also like putting games on your radar like The Devil Within or 13Z, because there's just a ton of games. I tried the demo last night after you posted it. Pretty dope. $21 right now on Steam, says Omar. Yeah, that's right. The Devil Within is $25 on PlayStation. It is on sale right now on Steam for $21. Vague means 30. Yeah, I would say you're going to get 30 FPS on Series X. They don't seem committed at all to 60, or they would have said that. $5 super chat from WGC. Experience says, anybody doubting Obsidian does so at their own peril, especially the Pillars team. We have been here before. Matt Baggs with a single gifted sets it up nicely at 515, tempting a 10 gifted bomb dunker to 25, and I'll owe you guys some more members. WGC, we've been here before. I really want to caution you guys against this. I really do. Y'all did this with Redfall. We went through the exact same thing with Redfall. It looked bad, it looked janky, and we were told Arcane don't miss. We were told from the previews, it's great. And then it launched at 30. That was a game that was supposed to launch at 60, launched at 30. They had to put stickers on the jewel cases. She said 30 isn't their target. What else could their target be? I swear to you guys, big red blinking sign. Do not take their statements to mean you're getting 60 FPS. They would say that, brother. They would say that. Thank you for the 5 gifted from Belfagor. Then he gets us to 520. He makes it really, really easy for somebody to dunk at home. Homies, don't do that. I'm telling you, don't do that. Don't do this. This dev don't miss. Don't do this. Well, they probably mean 60. No. I'm just cautioning you guys. Please don't do that. We've done this so many times. Just let's wait. Let's wait for the game to come out. I'm advising caution. I'm not saying it's going to be bad. I'm not saying it's going to be unfun or boring or anything like that. I'm just saying be cautious with this. What could the target be if it's not 30? Well, what she's saying is that we're not targeting 30. Sometimes game companies will say, we're targeting 40 or 50, or we're targeting... Basically what she's saying is like, oh, we're not trying to target 30. We're trying to give good optimization. And Storm with a VIP renewal. 36 months. That's 3 whole years. Taking us to 521. And another $5 super chat from Siriu. It's like people want to be deceived. We have past evidence of Microsoft deception. Yeah, don't fall into these traps, boys, please. I don't think she was saying we're not targeting 30 and then there's some secret number that they're targeting. I think what she was doing was pushing against the notion that like, oh yeah, we're targeting 30. She's like, no, we're trying to get the best frames that we can. But she's not saying what that is or what that means. We're targeting 60, but we can't hit it. Every company that has a performance mode that's going for 60 says target 60 FPS. They all say the same thing. They all use the same phrasing. God of War Ragnarok did it, and I was like, oh no, why does it say targeting? And then somebody showed me. Someone was like, they all say targeting, Lono. And I was like, oh, okay. They all say targets 60 FPS. They were getting backlash because it was like, the guy's like, yeah, it's a 30 FPS game. You don't really need 60. And so people are like, what? And then she's like, well, hang on. We need to clarify something here. We're not targeting 30. Right? What she's saying is like, we're not targeting 30. We're trying to get the most frames per second as we can. But they're not to the point where they can give you assurances about 60. That's why they're not saying it. A $5 super chat from Talika. Thanks for the laughs this morning in Morning Coffee. Great way to start my birthday. Guys, it's Talika's birthday. VIP renewal from Bro Sexy. You guys better hit these goals today. Talika, it's her birthday. She wants it. She wants me and Hilly to play Cuphead. She told me secretly. No, she didn't. I'm just being stupid. But yes, happy birthday, Talika. Congratulations on making it another time around the sun. It's the Unreal Engine 5. It's not hitting 60 with that amount of NPCs, 800p, 40 to 50 FPS at best, says Paul. Wasn't Concord in Unreal 5, though? How did they do it? Is it because there were no NPCs? And a single gifted from Stone Spire takes us to 523. Thank you so much. Mario Kart tonight? No. As much as I like Talika, I'm not playing Mario Kart with her tonight. And another one from Stone Spire. Stone Spire's going to walk this. There he does it. All the way to 525. I now owe you guys 5 members. It was a small arena shooter. Yeah, but every single time I'm seeing gameplay from Avowed, they're always in like a small contained arena. They're never in big, wide open, expansive areas. It's not like some big, giant open world. It's like open zone like FF16. And FF16 is able to hit 60 in their combat. And now they turn off dynamic res once you're out of combat, but still. Hot Robot with 28 months of Member Plus, and then a single gifted from Joker Quinn. That is an Agents of Chaos from Hot Robot, pushing us past the 525 on our way to the first stretch goal of 550. Imagine having no players also helps with frame rate. Yeah, it's just a single player game. You're by yourself. They have 3 months to hit 60 on console. Regardless, it's going to be 120 on PC for me. Listen, more power to you, because I refuse to do that now. I refuse to do it. On principle, I'm to the point where I'm like, no, I'm not retreating to PC anymore. No, I did it with Starfield. I did it with Hellblade 2, and I'm done. I would treat Indiana Jones the exact same way. If it was launching at 30 on console, I'd be like, not playing it then. I'm just not. I'm not interested. Gameplay is not a centerpiece of my channel anyway. This is a talk show. I do gameplay. I play most of my game time now off stream in the evenings on my couch. Like, I don't need to stream Avowed for an hour or two. I don't need to stream Indiana Jones for an hour or two. It's not a necessary thing. It just isn't. And my backlog of games is so big, the last thing I'm going to do is waste time and energy on a game at 30. I'm beyond that now. I'm not doing it. I wouldn't have done it for Hellblade 2 if I wasn't such an enormous fan of the first game. I wouldn't have done it for Hellblade 2. I was making a cheeky little joke about Concord, but honestly, good point. Oh, you were being cheeky about there's no players. Right, but yeah, I'm saying in Avowed, it's just you. There's no other players. Lowell says, I don't care about that. I paid good money for my PC. I'm not going to see it as retreating to PC. I'm using my secondary platform. Yeah, my PC's 4 and 5 years old. I bought a Series X for experiences that they promised that they continue to fail to deliver on. So it's like a matter of principle for me. It's like it's another first party title dropping below what was promised. So it'll get zero airtime and coverage. I mean, I'm covering it today as a matter of news to relay to you what the previews are saying. But I will not do that anymore. If that was happening with, like I said, with Indiana Jones, I would do the exact same thing. I'm like, no. I appreciate you do gameplay every now and then, says Brett, for those who want it, but I check out when you stream gameplay. No, I'm used to that, Brett. I'm 100% used to that. It's a matter of what people tune in for. You tune in to talk with me or listen to me talk, one of the two, you know. Redfall was pretty much like this before release. Lots of positive talk and hype, and look at what happened when the actual game released. I will say this, Mr. Grimm. Force Gaming is the only person I really paid attention to in this preview event thing for Avowed, who gives me hope for the game, because he is not the type of person to blow smoke. I've watched his content for a long time. Congrats by the way, for Force for hitting 1 million subs. He just doesn't strike me as somebody that would say a bunch of hype. Like, if he doesn't like it, he'll just say it wasn't good or it didn't hit. When you have 1 million subscribers and you cover the types of games that he covers, he doesn't need to play nice with Microsoft. He doesn't need to play nice with them. He could have easily gone to the preview event and come back and been like, no, it was no good. I didn't like it. So his video that I watched this morning gives me I don't have a ton of confidence in Avowed, but his video gave me the most confidence, because I was like, okay, well, I trust Force. I don't feel like he's like trying to stay in good with Microsoft. There are certainly outlets and YouTubers that I'm always very skeptical now. I'm like, you don't want to lose your Xbox connection, so it's really, really hard to take what they're saying as, you know, not just another Redfall scenario. Yellow, where's my buffoonery shirt? What's good, ADR Zone? God bless you and the fam and everyone here. Thank you so much. Avowed does look better now, says Paul. I absolutely hate the perspective of the guns, though. Yeah, look at this screenshot that Paul sent me last night. And I just don't understand. I really, really don't understand what's going on here. Like, what's going on? Did somebody, like... Now, maybe this person messed with their FOV. I don't know. I don't know what they were playing on. I don't know what degree they could mess with things. But I can't look at it and not see it as, like, it almost looks comedic. It almost looks comedic. It's like their elbows are locked and their arms, I mean, it's like their elbows are locked and they're like this. It's like my elbows get sore just looking at the picture. It's like, why? Why are we doing this? Why does it look like that? You know? It's so bizarre. And again, I've always found this perspective to be awkward for melee combat as well. We were talking about this a little bit early yesterday before the Golden Joystick Awards. Guys, give me 25 more likes. If you're tuning in and hit like as soon as you get here. We were talking about this a little bit before the Golden Joystick Awards. And you naturally pull a bow up to your eye line. You pull a rifle up to your eye line to shoot it. Shotgun, you know, pistol. All coming up into your eye line. A sword and a shield being like out in front of you like this. I look like a Lego. Like, have you ever played with Legos and you put like a sword and a shield in their hands and this is what they do? I just, for me, it's just an immediate break. I'm just like, why? I can't get into it. I want to see my character. Well, if you've seen any of the third-person perspective gameplay of Avowed, there's just this rigidity and stiffness to it. Like, and we went back and forth with this a little bit yesterday. I said, you know, look at the wand. I think Fextra Life. Let me see if I can get Fextra Life's up here and show you what I'm talking about. I think it was Fextra Life. If you look at the wand gameplay that Fextra Life has, Avowed gameplay, Fextra Life. I think it was them. Hang on. I don't have my controls here. Who was it that we were watching that had all the third-person wand gameplay? It's not Fextra Life. One of you guys sent me the clip. If you compare it, if you creature out here is watching videos on my login again. I'm like, what is all this sports stuff? Was it Eurogame? No, it wasn't Eurogamer. I can't remember. I'm trying to find it. Hang on. I'm scrolling back through everything that we've watched. I think it might be Mortismal. I think Mortismal Gaming had it. Yeah. Here we go. Okay. So, if you watch this wand gameplay, and... Oh, thank you, Lone Wolf. Sorry. I've got multiple screens in front of me. I couldn't see the Discord over on the right. Yeah, thank you. It was Mortismal. If you watch this wand gameplay, it just looks so rigid and so slow. Let's go back through this segment. All right. Like, look at how he's kind of like using the space and then just slowly... using the wand. Like, I watched this, all right, and then I watch, hang on, now I use this as an example, and someone told me, well, that's not fair, that game was made for third person, right? And I'm like, I don't feel like that's a fair, like, justification. Hang on, I'm trying to find some combat here. Yeah. If you watch wand gameplay in Hogwarts, there's just... Right? Now, like, it's like the I can't explain it. It's like the character becomes a refrigerator. It's like I'm a refrigerator, and I'm just like, and I'm like, and I'm like jumping off of something. You know what I'm saying? Camera's dynamic. I can't look at those two things and not be like, I'm sorry, your game looks like an old, rigid, slow game dressed up in new clothes. It doesn't look like something from the modern landscape, like, at all. I can't unsee it. It's like I played Hogwarts for, like, I don't even know how many hours. It's 42 hours. My wife played for like 60 something hours. And as soon as I saw this gameplay and he's using his wand, I was just like, dude, Hogwarts Legacy looks 1,000 times better than this. And people are like, well, Hogwarts Legacy is built for third person. This is not. I'm like, so? And listen, I'm not trying to convince you to not like it. I'm explaining to you why I'm like, bro, that doesn't look good. It looks so dated. It looks so slow, rigid, and stiff. Show Hogwarts sword gameplay now? I mean, I can't show you sword gameplay because Hogwarts is a game where you're always using a wand. I'm simply finding another game with wand gameplay to show you. There's everything from the player movement, the pivoting, the animations, the camera, all of it. Like, all of it looks, it just looks like I'm being like, I don't even know. It's like I'm being like stuffed into a box and the box is just pivoting everywhere. No, I get you. Right, like, I'm not trying to make it seem as though, like, oh, Hogwarts is such a better game. I'm saying I've played a game where I'm using a wand at distance and dodging and navigating three-dimensional space, and it feels fantastic in Hogwarts. This looks so not good. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm just like, bro, I don't think I would like this at all. It's the nature of RPGs. They're building a game with two different perspectives. I feel like we've had this discussion before. And the time where we had this discussion before, it was about Cyberpunk. And I had people saying that almost exact same thing to me because vanilla Cyberpunk gunplay, movement, and melee didn't feel good. It felt sloppy. It felt bad. And I had people say the same thing. Well, it's an RPG first. It's an RPG, so that doesn't really matter. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And then when Phantom Liberty finally landed, by the time it landed, they had overhauled so much. Everything felt significantly better. The guns felt better. Player impact, recoil feedback. The melee was completely overtooled or retooled. It all felt great. So, Force Gaming said that was his primary concern when playing a game like this, was the combat. The combat needs to feel good. It's like one of the main aspects of what you're doing. You go into an area and you got to kill everything. And then there's a mini boss or there's a boss and you got to kill everything. Like, don't tell me that combat's not important in a game like Avowed. It's one of the centerpieces of the dadgum game. It's one of the things they've shown in every single outing, in every single trailer, and in every single sit down, and in all these previews. 90% of the footage is combat. So don't do the hand wave combat doesn't matter thing. I don't think that that's true at all. And I don't feel like it's that difficult to make third person and wand or sword and shield feel good. I don't think so. I don't think that that's that difficult. And I feel like I've played indie titles with better fluidity, better movement, better combat than what I'm seeing here. Do you want to know how I know that? I watch the trailers and I'm like, that looks awesome, fluid, and snappy. And then I can go play it and I'm like, yeah, it does. None of this looks that way. This all looks very stiff and very rigid and very dated. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I just sympathize with the devs because it's hard to as crap, designing so many different systems, and also combat needs to feel pristine in both perspectives with hundreds of play styles. Well, sure, but I had people in here moments ago saying, well, it's Obsidian. Don't doubt Obsidian. I have a lot of reasons to doubt Obsidian. I'm seeing work here that doesn't seem at the caliber of other studios' games that I've played. Right? Sucker Punch with their movement and sword play in Tsushima. And I know what you're going to say is, well, that's a game built for third person. Okay. So, granting that point, it sounds to me like what a lot of you are saying is Avowed is made for the more classic first-person Skyrim-esque experience, and if you're wanting third person and you want it to feel like an action RPG, then this isn't the game for you. Here's the problem with that. Wasn't there an interview with the devs where they stressed action? It's more action? Or did they say it the other way around? I thought they did an interview where they talked about it being more of an action game than an RPG. I might be thinking of a different game in a different interview. I thought there was an interview where one of the devs said something like that. Digital Foundry tweets, Stellar Blade on the PS5 Pro is one of the most impressive upgrades we've seen for the system. John Linneman has the Digital Foundry review for this one. Yeah, it looked phenomenal the day we tried it out. I was very impressed. Both Avowed and Indiana Jones look jank AF. Avowed is literally listed as an ARPG. Right, if it's listed as an ARPG, then you can't sit here and act like the combat, it's okay if the combat doesn't feel that good or if it's slow or clunky. It's like, CRPG isn't a genre anymore, though. I thought they referred to Baldur's Gate 3 as a CRPG. A classic RPG. Or wasn't it originally a computer RPG? That's what it stood for? I thought when we talked about this last time that, Yeah, CRPG stands for computer role-playing game. I think a lot of people have just transposed it into classic RPG, but I'm fairly certain that I thought Baldur's Gate 3 was classified as a CRPG. Where is it listed as an ARPG? Steam? Hang on. According to the wiki, it's an action role-playing game. According to Steam, it's a first-person fantasy action RPG. Now it says Avowed is a first-person fantasy RPG. Isn't that weird? Yeah, Avowed is a first-person fantasy, right here, action RPG. This is their own Steam page. It's on their website as well. Yeah, I mean, right here. Avowed is a first-person fantasy action RPG. And up here, it's missing. Avowed is a first-person fantasy RPG from Obsidian Entertainment. Again, to me, when you say ARPG or action role-playing game, I'm like, that's supposed to mean there's an emphasis on the action, on the moment-to-moment choices that I'm making. Right? Traditionally, I believe when the term came up, wasn't it so that you would know that you were not doing turn-based, you were doing each individual choice. It was an action RPG instead of one where you like roll dice and then the thing happens. It's like, no, I'm actively clicking and doing the thing. Maybe I'm wrong. I thought that's why the distinction was born. Like, the distinction was born because it's like, here is a traditional RPG where you're rolling dice, numbers come out, that determines what you do, whether you give or take damage. An action RPG is, no, you're in charge of the action. You're swinging, you're blocking, you are dodging. That you are dictating the moment-to-moment action instead of dice determining the action. I think it's grown into the idea of like an action RPG or an ARPG is like it's a focus on the action. That's where the emphasis is. It's like, yeah, but I think traditionally that's not what the distinction was born out of. JC with 18 months in the VIP. I think both Avowed and Indiana Jones are going to release Undercook. Seems to be Xbox's MO. I hope you're wrong. I certainly feel similarly. Hang on. I got to add you to the total. JC gets us a little bit closer to the goal. And then so does WGC with a super chat, gets us halfway to the super chat goal. CRPG is just classic RPG. The biggest thing is choice and consequence, allowing the player the freedom to play as they want. Yeah, but the C in CRPG stands for computer. I think a lot of people just say classic now because that's the era of time. Like it's that's the classic RPG approach. But it traditionally meant computer RPG. Because the original RPG was D&D on a tabletop with dice and paper and little figurines. Like that was what RPG was born out of. That was a role-playing game where you role-played. You had a dungeon master and everybody's doing their thing and rolling and etc. And when that comes to computers, now it's a computer RPG, a CRPG. I think they might see it that way because it's more action than the Pillars games, which is because Pillars games are like Baldur's Gate 3 and are CRPGs. So okay, so from their perspective, they're coming from a more CRPG style. They're leaning into a more action style now. $5 super chat from Siriu. Comparing Avowed's original trailer to this is crazy. Abraro, I'm not sure how to say your name. The point is, you are right in that it would be better to not be clunky. Just be aware that fans of the genre do not focus as much on the combat. Right, I was going to say this earlier. I think there's a handful of responses to Avowed that happens. There are the people that are like, that's fine. It looks serviceable. It looks good. That combat looks great. There are then people like me, and I'm coming from games like Ghost of Tsushima. I'm coming from games like Sekiro or even Elden Ring, and I'm like, this combat looks terrible in comparison. Even compared to Hogwarts Legacy, I'm like, this doesn't look good at all. And the reason our perspectives are so different is because it's like, if you like those types of games, you're like, no, this is totally fine in this genre. It's not about this frenetic, fluid, moment-to-moment action focus. It's about the RPG. Like, to me, I mean, like the 5-second trailer in Concord with the twerking hamburger? I'm not sure what you're talking about. There was a Concord trailer with a twerking hamburger? I think it's fair to expect the combat to feel better than an MMORPG, says El Duderino. Visually, it looks like one which is not a great look. Could play better than it looks. I was just getting ready to go there, El Duderino. So, I am so much a fan of third-person, open-world action games that when I tried to play New World on console, it had been a long time since I'd played. And when I tried to play New World on console, I was just struck by how it didn't feel great. It was like, huh? Like, what is this? Why does it feel like this? Well, I'll tell you what it was. New World is not an open world action game. It's an MMORPG that has moved away from tabbed targeting to a more action focus. But it's still gonna feel a little, I don't know what to call it. It's like it's more syncopated. It's like I'm telling my player, hey, swing your axe. Hey, do your ability. And he's like, huh. And then he spins around. Instead of, I'm swinging the sword. I'm blocking the hit. I'm rolling out of the way. Do you see the difference? New World feels like I'm telling the player, hey, swing your sword. And then he does. And then, oh, hey, spin around. And then he does. It doesn't feel like I'm the one actively controlling every swing of the sword, every dodge, every block, every parry. If the moment-to-moment lacks that, I break with the game. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not the one doing the thing. It's like if you go back to, older Diablos. So you go back to like Diablo 2, Diablo 1 especially. Your character just sort of stands there and swings like this. And you're just holding the button down. And numbers, right? Now, look at Path of Exile 2. And it's, I'm swinging, I'm dodging, I'm rolling, I'm casting. It feels amazing. It feels like you're actually doing each individual action So it's immersive. Like when your player gets hurt or when your player blows something up, it feels amazing. You're like, I did that. Instead of standing in front of an enemy and your character's just doing this animation over and over, and you're just seeing 42, 42, 42 pop out of the enemy. I'm painting a picture here because when I look at Avowed, there's a spectrum of moment-to-moment player volitional control. There's a spectrum. All the way over here, I've got Ghost of Tsushima, Sekiro, Path of Exile 2. Every single thing that's happening is the result of my pressing a button. And then all the way over here, you have Baldur's Gate 3, where you're rolling a dice, right? Or turn-based is over here as well. And I feel like Avowed is somewhere in the middle. It feels a little bit like the action games, but it also feels a little bit like the old school dated RPGs. It's somewhere in the middle. So it doesn't really feel like it commits to one side of the spectrum. And then that's when I check out. I'm like, yeah, it doesn't look like it feels very good. It looks like it's slow, clunky, and everything has a little bit of a delayed feel to it. Does that make sense? Now, you might look at it and say, oh no, I get exactly what I want out of Avowed. I'm getting exactly what I want. I'm getting just enough flavor of action. I'm getting just enough flavor of like a classic RPG. This looks great. I think I lean all the way over here and I'm like, brother, give me the action. My favorite thing to do in a game is the parry. You guys know that the minute I play a game and I've got to dodge with iframes, the very next thing I check for is I check for animation cancel, which is so enjoyable. And then I also check for a parry. Because when that guy is swinging and I go ka-ping and everything slows down, I feel like a god. I don't know why. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why it appeals to me so much. But parrying to me is like the chef's kiss motion moment of what you can do in a game. It's just perfection. You're reading the enemy telegraph, your reaction time, all of that coming down to this singular moment of impact. And I think that it's beautiful. I love it. And when I can't get that, I'm like, I'm out. I'm out. It doesn't feel. I have seen and felt and tasted the greatness of these games, and when your game doesn't do that, I'm like, yeah, it's inferior. It's inferior. It doesn't look as good. It's a matter of perspective. Because that's my perspective. Yo, Mike on a mic. Happy Friday, baby! He says, yo, can we get 3 more super chats? Let's get some more likes. You guys are working on a stretch goal. I love Lono's parrying poetry. I am Melee with 35 months, capped at 30 FPS. Visually doesn't look great. Combat looks clunky. Avowed will be a hard pass for me. And that bumps the line to 529. So close to that first stretch goal. You guys are crushing it. We've only been live for about an hour. I love when I shut down enemies in a third-person action game. Yes. Smelt as well. They're different games. Thank God games have different styles, TBH. I don't think you're interacting with what I'm saying. I have played games 2D, 3D, open world. It doesn't matter. The moment-to-moment action being dictated by my choices. Just last night, I played 2 completely different games. I played 13Z, which is a third-person action-adventure rogue, and I played The Devil Within, which is a 2D action platformer. And the reason they felt great is because I'm controlling what feels like every millisecond of the action. I am doing it. And when I look at Avowed, I see all of that jank and that clunk, and I see all that delay, and I'm like, no thank you. And again, I'm leaving room for people that are like, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. It's in the lane of like action and classic RPG. It's kind of borrowing from both. It has that, it almost feels kind of like Skyrim, but it also kind of feels like newer games. Like, and they're happy, and I'm like, I think it looks incredibly slow and boring. And I think there's room for both types of people. I'm leaving room for you. Leave room for me. That's what I'm asking here. Pasito with 37 months. Milestone help. It's coming. I gave you guys some new emotes. It's coming. I knew it. Yo, thank you so much. And Gordon McLaren with a whole year of membership, and he bumps the line to 531. We're a 20 bomb away from the milestone. Let's see if you guys can summon one of the big boys. Let's see if we can summon somebody who's not MASH. Now's the time to take the glory from MASH, guys. He's not here yet. Dynasty Warrior Origins demo is up, and it's actually next-gen-ish looking. Not muddy textures, just killing. Yeah. I think that was in one of my shows earlier this week. I talked about how you could play that demo right now. No one can call any game junk without playing it. I didn't say junk. I said jank. It's just got that jank to it. Listen, we have this conversation on a regular basis. Don't sit here and tell me that you're stupid, because that's what you're doing. You're saying to me, listen, I'm too stupid to deduce what gameplay feels like from videos. That's not true. You are not stupid. You have the ability to look at a video and tell if gameplay looks fluid, feels good, and has punch and good seamless transitions or good player feedback. You don't tell me that you're stupid, because you're not. We all have the ability to look at these trailers and we can tell if gameplay looks or feels bad. And I'll give you an example. The opening of Dragon Age Veilguard, the combat feels terrible. Do you want to know why? You're super limited in what you can do. It's super duper linear, and the enemies are brain dead. And do you remember, we had this conversation about Veilguard, and we watched that video, and I said, there's something off with the combat. It lacks fluidity. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look right. And then what happened? A couple months goes by, they release a trailer where they're fighting a dragon, and I'm like, that looks hot. And lo and behold, when I played Dragon Age Veilguard, I had quite literally the exact experience that we were able to observe with our eyeballs in those videos. The opening to Veilguard feels terrible. And then you get abilities, and you get strong, and you get in real fights, and it feels nuts. It feels so good. It's night and day. You see what I'm saying? You don't tell me that you're stupid. You're not stupid. You can look at these trailers and sense something feels off. Ooh, that looks good. That looks fluid. That looks fast. That looks awesome. That looks bad. We have the ability to do that. We do. Is being able to tell a power inverted players have? Huh? Is being able to tell a power inverted players have? That sentence is breaking my brain. I'm not sure what you're trying to communicate. Liquid Smoke says, combat in Veilguard is a lot of fun. The opening was rough. Right, we had this conversation. And everyone's like, Lono, you haven't played the game yet. You can't say that. I'm like, dude, I've been playing video games since they were invented. Like, what do you mean? I have the ability to deduce. I can look and see. Like, you can clearly watch a trailer and you can tell, ugh. And here's the thing. Obsidian acknowledged everything we're talking about. They acknowledged that they were working on the combat. They acknowledged that they were working on the impact of the attacks on the enemies. Because those first couple outings, everybody said the same thing. Oh, is being able to tell a power that inverted players have. I'm an inverted player, and so you're saying, okay, now I understand what you were saying, Zubair. Taking things a little too far. They were invented before you were born. I mean, okay, sure. I was born in 81. I was in the proximity of the birth of video games in the home. When Ataris, Colecos, and Nintendos showed up on the scene, I was alive and I had them in the house. Like, okay, I wasn't there when the very, very first video game was there. You know what I was saying? I was speaking in generality. Like, I'm from the era when this thing became a thing. Like, when people were buying Nintendos and bringing them home, and they were buying Ataris and Colecos, like home PCs, building PCs and playing games like Quake, like, and Doom, like, and Wolfenstein 3D. Like, I was there when all this stuff came into being. You can't question anybody's ability that's been playing games that long. Like, you guys have been playing games a long time. You have the ability to watch a trailer and deduce if it's good or not. This idea, like, and yes, this is another thing we've talked about. We also have the ability to tell whether or not we're seeing raw gameplay or not. This is another conversation that we have. It's always interesting to me. It's always super interesting to me. This is the duality of man. I have people telling me that the footage in State of Decay's trailer and Fable's trailer, that's real gameplay, Lono. No, it's not. It's simulated gameplay. The fact that I have to tell you this is embarrassing. It's not raw gameplay. It's simulated. It is. So you'll tell me that. Oh, no, yeah, I can tell that's real gameplay. But then when I start breaking down gameplay and I'm like, it looks clunky, it looks slow, it doesn't look good, you're like, yeah, but you haven't played it yet. You can't say that. Well, pick one. Do you have the ability to deduce if something is raw gameplay or not? Like, it was obvious that South of Midnight was raw gameplay. It was obvious that that's how you showcase gameplay, and that the Fable trailer and the State of Decay trailer were not real and raw pieces of gameplay. They were simulated. We have more ability to deduce than you guys give yourselves credit for. It's in engine. That's not always representative. Right, and that's when we say, Doom, I'm not sure. I'll give you another example. Perfect Dark. We have no idea what Perfect Dark's going to feel like, because that footage that they showed us, that was in engine. That was all simulated. That wasn't raw gameplay. It was like, what? No. You can tell. You can almost feel it in the game. We went through this with the day before. Yo, good to see you, Vince Virtua. Anyhow, have fun later. Yeah. There's some great Black Friday sales. Agreed. We went through this with the day before. I kept telling people, I'm like, that's not real gameplay. I've been watching gameplay trailers since they were a thing on television back in the day. This isn't my first rodeo. I knew that wasn't real gameplay when we looked at the day before. It's like, that's not real. It's fake. And what did we do? We had people... I had people so angry. Oh, yeah, you wait. Just you wait. The game's going to come out. It's going to prove you wrong. Sure, Jan. How'd that work out? It was obvious that wasn't real gameplay. We were around when 16-bit graphics were the future. That's right. I remember using an Atari controller on a Sega Genesis. Yeah, I don't think I ever did that. We went from Pong to Coleco to NES. That was what we did. And then we went from NES to GameCube. I went from GameCube to PC. PC back to 360. 360 to Xbox One. Xbox One and PS4. PS4 Pro. Series X. PS5. PC as well is intermingled in there. And then now mainly PS5 Pro. Mortismal said it felt better than it looks. Hopefully that's the case. Yeah, I keep coming back to my man Force Gaming. My man Force, I trust him, and he enjoyed it, and he had high praise. And he's never ever once made me feel like he was just blowing smoke. Never once. So to me, it's like, okay, he's given me some hope that this might actually work. But again, if it's not 60 FPS on Series X, it kind of doesn't matter. Lone Wolf says, I'm definitely leaving room for you not to feel the same way as I do. I understand your position. I think you've always engaged this game in good faith. It's completely fair to be skeptical. It's fair to not like how the combat looks. And I think it's fair for you to say that it looks great, because I think it's hitting a tone that certain players look for. if you look at the way that the dialogue takes place and the RPG choices take place, if you watch Force Gaming's video, he's like stumbling upon things and reading things, and he's like, oh, there should be a cave nearby, and then there was a cave. Oh, I bet you if we go up here, this place is haunted. And he goes up, and it's haunted, and they kill everything. If you like that, environmental storytelling, RPG storytelling, engaging with choice and dialogue, and you look at the combat and you're like, no, that looks totally serviceable to me. I can't wait to play this game and pour hundreds of hours into. I think that is 100% fair. It is. And I always feel like that's the best place to be, where like you hear what I'm saying and you're like, no, I get it. You're like, I totally see why somebody might think it's a little janky and a little clunky. But you're looking at everything else. You're looking at the entire picture. To you, it would be like... To you, it would be like watching the Lord of the Rings movies and not being thrilled with what they did with a particular character. But the whole package is so good, you're like, I can look past it. You're like, the whole package of what Avowed's going to give me, I can look past a little jank and a little clunkiness in the combat. You're like, yeah, I can look past that. Like, with me, with Ghost of Tsushima, there are some quest types and some mission types in Tsushima that I think are just stupid. Like making me go up and press a button so that Jin gets down and looks at spilled rice or footprints in the mud. And then I got to do this a handful of times, and then I have to like run and follow footsteps. I can't stand those missions. Those missions are not bad enough for me to be like, yeah, this game's terrible. The whole package of Tsushima is it's such a level of excellence that I'm like, yeah, I can overlook these missions. Kind of random, but this combo popped up in my head. I was playing Karate Survivor at 4K 240 on an OLED, and it felt like playing on a CRT used to feel. I had forgotten what CRT felt like. Most people are playing Avowed for the RPG mechanics anyway, not the action. Right. Here's the issue, Doom. Here's the issue with that. Watch all the trailers. Look at how they label it. And I got news for you. There are going to be a lot of people that go to play this and are like, this is bad. I don't like it because it looks like more of an action RPG. And they're going to be looking for that combat and that moment-to-moment movement and all of that. They're going to want that to feel really good. And I don't think that's going to be the shining star of Avowed. I don't. Now, some of the reviews were skeptical about the game. And they're like, yo, I'm really looking forward to this now. So that means the preview kind of convinced them, which is encouraging. That happened to me with Veilguard. I went into Veilguard. I was super skeptical. I was. We were like an hour in, and I told you guys, I was like, I don't know about this game, boys. I was like, I don't know. And then somebody gave me a tip on something I could do with telling my guys what to do with a button, and it changed the entire experience for me. I was able to do my abilities on the fly, moment to moment, instead of like pulling up the radial. I remember the fight. We were in that room. There were 4 pillars, and there were these robot guys. These robots made of stone. And somebody in chat was like, "Oh, if you hold down left trigger, it'll pull all of the button prompts up for everything that you're trying to do." And when that happened, I was like, "Oh, this is excellent." It changed the entire experience for me. So, you know, the hope would be that Avowed gameplay can do that. It can hit some type of fluidity or some type of flow state to where, you know, it changes my mind. It makes me feel like, oh no, this is worth it. This is good. Instead of feeling like, I always sometimes feel like in games like this, when it has that sluggish feel or that slowness, I always feel like I'm fighting with the game. And that's never a good feeling. I never want to feel like I'm fighting with the game. Does that make sense? It was like the camera in Veilguard was giving me grief, and I increased the sensitivity, and it fixed it. It was like, I felt like I was fighting with the camera. It was like, oh, somebody's behind me. Like, let me turn the camera. You know what I mean? I'm assuming if you like Outer Worlds, then you'll like Avowed. One of the previews said they didn't like Outer Worlds, so they didn't expect to like Avowed, but they did. The biggest hurdle will be performance. yeah, it certainly feels like another game that bought into the mantra of, you know, they bought into the mantra of, you know, Unreal 5 is going to be amazing, and it's got all these razor blades in it, and it's just causing all these problems. Guys, real quick, thanks for the strong turnout here on Friday. Make sure you're smashing the like button. Let's try to get to 300 likes. And double check if you have a membership renewal. We're trying to hit a stretch goal. Tonight, Hilly and I are going to be playing some games, and you can make us play really, really painful games. You're going to let us off the hook if we don't hit these stretch goals. The first game is Limbs at 550. If we get to 600, Hilly and I have to play Cuphead, which will be hysterical. We don't do the greatest in tough games together. Also, if you guys are in the market for... Never mind. This is upcoming. They just sent me an email about some upcoming deals with one of my partners, but it is not something that is happening right now. So ignore me. Trending right now. Yeah, I didn't cover the flight. I did not cover the flight sim thing. They are boy oh boy are they having trouble. Man. Remind me tomorrow. Okay. And I'm already all paid up on the memberships that I owe you. So see if you guys have any memberships to renew. You guys can help us with the goal. Also, Super Chats help with the goal as well. We're 3 away from the Super Chat goal. So thank you everybody who already has done Super Chats today. I love the first Planet in Outer Worlds, but the game fell off for me after that. Not sure why. What's up with these next-gen games? They don't even look that great, but they're struggling to perform. It's UE5. Unreal 5, for whatever reason, is just, I don't know. Everybody pivoted to it, and now they're all like, oh, man, we're having a hard time optimizing. I'm not sure what the hang-up is. What about Stalker 2? I already played it, covered it, and talked about it. Extremely disappointing performance. If you really like the world of Stalker, it seems like there's a good game to be enjoyed, but performance on Xbox and the bugs and glitches are just... They're so bad that I'm seeing like hardcore Xbox guys encourage folks to not play the game on Xbox. They're like, it just is bad. I wasn't having a great time with it because it's just not my kind of game. It just isn't. I was like, I threw a bolt and I didn't run fast enough. Like, I'm not a good player in that regard. Like, I don't do a great job with like reading tutorials and picking up things quickly. I'm more of a casual dum-dum. And I was just like, man, this game's really punishing. The people that like that, they like that Stalker is punishing and it's a world that just beats a tar out of you. Some of those people are having a really great time, and it seems to be getting better scores on PC. We've got some renewals. SSJ Gohan with the VIP. Low Life King with 43 months. That's a lot of months. 30 months for SSJ Gohan. And then a single gifted from DK Bager. There we go. Moving the line. These boys are like, we can't let Hilly and Lono off the hook. Let's have a nice, strong send-off. I am off next week, so we're trying to have a big send-off so that we can kind of have a celebration tonight with Hilly, with the return of Hilly Hijinks. So, a second ago, I asked you guys to double-check the like count, and it didn't move. Make sure YouTube's not bugging out. Double-check your likes, because it's doing that thing again. It does that on premieres all the time. I have to, like, refresh for it to save the likes. It's super bizarre. 30 months from Legend Status. Thank you so much for the VIP renewal, Mr. Legend. Appreciate you. We're 15 away. We are 15 away from the first stretch goal. I hope the game's sales go up to 5 million for them. Yeah, Stalker sold like 1 million already, which is pretty impressive. That's solid for 48 hours? That's pretty good. And then they said there's a lot more players on Game Pass. I don't know how well it's doing though on Xbox, because given how poorly it's running and how punishing it is as a Game Pass game, I wouldn't be shocked if the score is not great on Xbox. Wouldn't shock me. Yeah, it's a 3.3. That's not surprising. That's a 66%. That's a pretty bad score. RPG 88 with a VIP bumps the line as well. There it is. That's not surprising. You know, you got a lot of people trying the game that it's not their style, so they're probably not enjoying how punishing it is. And that's a benefit of Game Pass, right? This guy just bashes Game Pass. No, that's a benefit of Game Pass. Game Pass will almost always drop the score of a game. Always. It's not Game Pass's fault. That's the value of Game Pass demonstrated in the game score. Liza P has its lowest score on Xbox. Why? It was on Game Pass. So a bunch of people that typically don't try that kind of game tried it, and they probably got beat up real bad and then gave it a bad score, right? So Game Pass will always drop the score of a game because you've got a bunch of people in the funnel who typically wouldn't be there. So that's never, I'm never saying that as a negative. That's an expression of one of the positives of Game Pass. 0 FPS is punishing. Stalker 2 reception is exactly what I anticipated. You anticipated it to be mixed or bad? What did you anticipate? Why does Hellblade have such a good score on Xbox though? Hellblade 2 Xbox store. And then let's look at Hellblade 2 on Steam. I don't think Hellblade was like high quantities. Yeah, I mean it only has 5.7 thousand reviews and it has a 4.4. It has an 88. An 88's fine. Like that's a fine score. That's a good score. It's got an 87 on Steam. So the users on Steam and the users on Xbox agree, but track with me now. It has 5.7 thousand reviews. Stalker already has almost 2,000 reviews. And Stalker's been out for way less time. So like I feel like with Hellblade, there were way more people looking forward to Stalker 2 than Hellblade 2. So it's a lot harder to maintain a score when more people are coming for your game. Like Hellblade 2 is a smaller sample, right? You also have to take what I was saying in context. You can't just rip what I'm saying out of context and say, oh, it'll always hurt a game's score. I'm saying it tends to do that, especially in punishing games. In a punishing game like Liza P or Stalker 2, if that game hits Game Pass, it's going to drop the score because you're going to have people say, I typically don't play games like this. They're not my cup of tea. It's on Game Pass. I might as well try it out. Well, they're not going to have a good time, and then they're going to give the game a bad score. Like, Liza P is the best example because it's such a high score everywhere else. It's got like a 96 on Steam and I think like a 92 on PlayStation. And then when you come over to Xbox, it has an 82. So it's like 96, 92, up to the 90s. Holy crap, 82 on Xbox. Like a 14 to 10 point difference. Why? A bunch of people dropped its score. Like, look how many people gave it a 1 star. 14% of the people gave Liza P a 1 star. That's literally just people that tried it. That's all they were doing. I'm like, none of what I'm saying, if you're interpreting what I'm saying as a negative, that's a you problem. I'm making it like painfully, horribly obvious that I am not bashing Game Pass. I will almost assuredly get false framed, clipped, and that's what it'll be cast as. It's like, yep, here's Reforge Gaming. Game Pass is bad and hurts game scores. No, it's a value of Game Pass that people can try a game they almost would never try out. That's going to almost automatically drop a game score. It is. It's why refunds on Steam don't affect a game's score, because it isn't fair to let somebody who tried a game for 30 minutes decide that it wasn't for them, refunded it. It isn't fair to let all those people just plummet a game's score. Does that make sense? Like, you're always going to have that trend in game reviews where if people are not accustomed to the game and don't spend a lot of time in it, they're going to trend towards pulling the score down. But if you have to buy it, it's going to keep all those people out. They're not going to be in the mix giving it a score. Hellblade 2 sounds like a good Game Pass game. Hellblade 2 wasn't a hard or challenging game. It was just very slow and very movie-esque. I'm actually impressed it got an 88. I would have expected its score to kind of drop because there would have been a lot of people that never played the first one. They would have no idea what they're getting themselves into, and they'd be like, why is this such a slow... The opening of that game is so incredibly slow. Like, you just climb a hill. It takes forever. I have a question for chat in terms of game difficulty. I finished Dark Souls 3 and all of the DLC several weeks ago. Is Liza P way more difficult compared to Dark Souls 3? It's a different type of difficulty. So, if you beat Dark Souls 3 and all the DLC, some of the DLC bosses, I've been told, are some of the more difficult FromSoft bosses historically. Then you've got chops. If you beat Dark Souls 3 and all the DLC, I would say you've got FromSoft or Souls game chops. Liza P is more adjacent or more like Sekiro. And I feel like Sekiro was harder than Dark Souls 3. Now, I didn't play all the DLC in Dark Souls 3, but I thought Sekiro was way harder than Dark Souls 3 because you can't overlevel, you can't overpower, you can't brute force anything. It's all about perfect parries. Yeah, boss movement in Liza P is harder to read. I would agree with that as well. Enemy telegraphs in Dark Souls 3 are pretty obvious. They're pretty obvious. Liza P, some guy can be like this, and all of a sudden he goes like this, and wham, and then he hits you. And you've got to learn that that's a wind-up. Like, you do learn the enemy telegraphs, but I feel like the enemy telegraphs in Liza P are just, there's more of a sloppy looseness to them, I would say. So Sekiro's the most fair. Yeah, I wouldn't argue that it's not fair. I just think it's more difficult. I feel like I found it to be more difficult. Yeah, like the frickin' fat clown in Liza P. His telegraphs are really tough to read sometimes, and he'll take you to the cleaners. So, if I would say you've got the chops, though. If you beat Dark Souls 3 and all the DLC, I think you'd be able to walk into Liza P and figure it out and play well. That was a great Liza P impression. Did you like Wukong? I did like Wukong. I'm hoping that it gets fixed on PS5 because it just doesn't run well. It's a 30 FPS game. They use frame gen to double the frames, so you're constantly dealing with input latency and input drops. It feels better on the Pro, right? It feels better on the Pro, but like, I got to a new area after beating the Black Bear boss, and it was so stuttery and so bad. I was like, I'm not playing this. If that game could run at a locked 60, oh gosh, it's such fun. I love the combat in it. I also like that it kind of just moves to the next thing and moves to the next thing and moves to the next thing. Like, people are like, it's just a boss rush. I mean, sometimes I'm in the mood for that, you know? Sometimes I'm in the mood for that. Wukong does not have a Pro Enhanced version. No, it does not. It just ran better because it's a stronger GPU. Like, I felt like it just ran smoother. But again, as soon as I got into another area, I was like, yeah, this game still just doesn't. Its performance mode it's caca. The way some of those PlayStation guys and some of those hardcore ponies talked about that game, I'm not going to call it dishonest, but it was pretty dadgum close to dishonest. I was like, this game does not run well on the PS5. Y'all are suspect, you know. Y'all are coming from games like Ragnarok and Forbidden West and Spider-Man 2, and you have the nerve to say that Wukong's running smooth on the PS5. Like, how dare you, sir? Like, there are immaculate, really well-optimized games on the PS5, and Wukong ain't one of them. So, posturing and telling people that it was, and I had a lot of people trying to smack me down, and I was like, I've been playing on this thing for 4 years, and I know what an optimized good performance mode looks like, and this ain't it. You play Returnal and Ratchet and Horizon and God of War and even older games that have been updated like Tsushima Director's Cut or Spider-Man 2, and then you walk into Black Myth Wukong and you're like, no, yeah, this runs perfectly well. It's perfectly smooth. No, not at all. I think it's like you said back when it happened, it's a skill issue on their part. I mean, I do. I think there's a part of me that I've always found myself complaining more in a game where I'm playing well. Does that make sense? Like, once I get to a point where I'm playing well, I complain more. And I don't know if that's because once I start to play well, it passively sets the expectation that I should be always doing well, which is obviously something that happens, right? Like, anger comes from a sense of injustice or unmet expectations. So if I'm thinking, oh, I'm doing well now, I should be able to beat this boss fairly quickly, and then I don't, I'll get angry, right? But I also think once you start to get proficient at a game, sometimes you can sense the rough edges. You're like, yeah, that didn't work quite right, or that didn't seem quite right, or that seemed kind of cheap, right? And so the minute a game starts dropping inputs or there's something going on with input latency, I just immediately pick up on it. I'm like, something's not right here. And it's because I'm expecting everything to happen right when it's supposed to, especially when you get good at reading an enemy telegraph and you go to block, dodge, or parry. You expect your character to do it. It's like, what are you doing, bro? I know I'm older. You know, I know my reflexes aren't what they used to be, but even at my age, I managed to beat Sekiro. That's pretty demanding game for reflexes, you know. So when I walk into a game like Wukong and I'm like, it's stuttering and I'm not getting response sometimes, like I'm hitting buttons and nothing's happening, you know, I think sometimes there are people that are less skilled in those games and they're just accustomed to losing a lot. And so they just assume it's them. They just assume they're playing poorly or they're not doing a good job. And it's like, I remember I would go into a boss room in Sekiro and I would have people in chat that are like, oh, this guy is so tough. It took me a couple days to beat this guy. And I'd be like, oh no, oh my word. And 45 minutes later, the boss would be dead. So I do think sometimes there are levels of proficiency. You're never going to watch me for my skill, right? I'm not one of those Souls guys that can go in and do these insane no hits or, right, I don't play at their level of skill. But I do think there's something that's, I would call it like raw proficiency, where you can just sort of proficiently move through a game. I'm not finessing fights. I'm not putting up guides. I'm not going to do a no-hit run or a no-damage run. That's never going to be me. But there's a raw level of proficiency that I can hit in a game where Sekiro, you're telling me, oh, this boss took me for forever. And an hour later, he's on the ground. And I'm like, got him. You know, I had a lot of people during my Sekiro playthrough say that. They're like, you're playing much better than I did, you know. And I think when someone at that level of proficiency goes into a game like Wukong, they're like, this is running fine. What are you talking about? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's dropping inputs and there's input latency. And they're like, I don't feel it. I think some of that's a skill issue. I think they don't sense it because they don't play at that level of proficiency. They're accustomed to playing a boss 25 times before beating him. I'm accustomed to playing a boss 6 times, and then I'm like, all right, what the frick's wrong here? Does that make sense? You should have seen my strat on Ishin, 20 to 25 minute run. Yeah, Ishin was the longest fight I had in Sekiro. It took me 5 hours. Pretty much every boss I had beat in under an hour. I think you're pretty good in combat games once you stop the Ooga Booga? Huh? Oh, like once I stop playing like a caveman? You should do no-hit runs on a Friday night while drinking. Did you play those boss rush modes and the inner versions of some of the bosses in Sekiro? No, I've always wanted to go back and do a replay of Sekiro and take my time. I had to rush through Sekiro because we were up against the wall of the Elden Ring release. We were doing something called From Fridays. And so, sadly, I had to rush, and I'm really sad that I did it. You know, you can't cancel animations to drink from the gourd. Makes no sense. That makes no sense at all. There are times on PS5 because of the input issues, I'll have to hit the heal button 3 times to heal. All I'm doing is like backing away or running away from the enemy, and I'm like, heal, 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 and then he finally heals. That you can't play a game that's doing that to you. You cannot get into a flow state if enemies in a neutral, I'm going to make space and heal, and it doesn't work. It's like, well, what? You got to hit it again. You got to hit it again. Your flow state's completely gone because now I don't have confidence it's going to work. The one time I double healed in Wukong because I thought, oh, it's not working, so I double mashed it and I wasted a heal. It's like you cannot get into a flow state with a game if you're going to literally press a button as simple as just trying to heal your character and it doesn't work. I can't lie, Reforge is holding it down today. I agree with him today. He's right about Wukong and Sekiro. Well, I appreciate that. Dropped inputs equals take a shot. I'd be dead. I'd be dead, Paul. By the way, I don't know if Charles Freeman is here. Charles Freeman, are you here? I got that somebody recommended, oh, it just disappeared from my card. Shoot. It's out there on the mantle. Somebody recommended the bourbon with the rabbit on it. I can't remember the name of it now. And I guess they cask it in cherry, or they put it in sherry casks. Oh my gosh. It is really good. It is really good. The healing is so annoying. Yeah. It's super frustrating. It's super frustrating. The way, again, you can't get into a flow state when a game's doing that. I need the name. Hang on. I might be able to see it on my orders because it left my cart, but it should be in my previous order history. It's really good. Bourbon drinker here. Rabbit Hole Derringer Sherry Cask Bourbon. Rabbit hole, as in a rabbit's hole, you know, where he goes to hide. Rabbit Hole Derringer Sherry Cask Bourbon. It's $77. And I was like, dude, that's too expensive. I'm not really going to be spending that kind of money on bourbon. And then Charles Freeman was like, super chat, $100. He's like, buy it. And I was like, you son of a gun. So I did. It was very kind of him to do that. And it's phenomenal. It's very good. I don't know if I'll have any tonight. I try to take it easy on Friday nights. I try to like slowly work my way through a couple of beers and then that's it. These names, right? Anyways, if you guys want to tune in tonight for that, wherever you are in the world, roughly 8 hours from now, Hilly and I will be streaming, and you can put us through some pain if you hit these stretch goals. If you guys don't hit the stretch goals, I'm not doing it. I'm not. We're just going to hang out and play that other game, whatever it's called, Sunken Land. We're going to kick off the night playing Sunken Land, laughing and having some drinks, but you can make us play Limbs, and you can make us play Cuphead if you hit the goal. And if Mash doesn't show up today, y'all are going to have to figure it out on your own. You can't always get saved by that man. Sometimes he's busy, and sometimes he's traveling. So you're going to let me and Hilly off the hook. Off the hook. Not spending 80? What are you, poor? I need your A game for Cuphead, not dribbling on your mic, mouth breathing. That's right, Hilly. Maybe I'll start the night with it and then I'll put it away. They're not going to make us play, though, Hilly. They're not going to make us play. They've only got about 45 minutes left. They're going to have to hustle. Cuphead's dope, but tough AF. I have always wanted to go back and give another shot because I was actually really enjoying it. And then I got to the dragon fight and I got tilted and I stopped. I felt like there was an element of RNG to the fight, and people were like, it's not RNG. And it was like, it felt like RNG to me. And I bounced. So Hilly's pre-blaming. That's right. Well, we need 15 more likes on the video. And you guys can submit questions as members anytime you want now. Anytime you want throughout the stream, you guys can submit questions and I'll pop them up on the stream. You guys are kind of in the driver's seat now. I talked about Avowed and the Avowed gameplay. We talked about we didn't really talk about the Assassin's Creed Shadows gameplay. What did you guys think of that gameplay? Does it look better to you? I feel like it looks better. No, I played Getting Over It. Yeah, I don't want to play that again. I already played that. Let me go to history. Creature, stop watching shorts on my account. What the frick, man? You're gonna mess up my algo. He's watching all these shorts of I don't even know what, like celebrities and stuff. I can't even delete them. Oh, wait. I can't even delete them all. I have to delete all these shorts one by one. My algo is gonna get so screwed up. Got to remove them from your history, or it'll mess with your what it recommends to you. He must have been just scrolling, bro. He's just scrolling. I got a Russell Crowe clip. I got a Rogan clip. I got Key and Peele. Oh my word. Let me show you guys this AC Shadows gameplay though, and see what you guys think of it. They Jor Raptor put it all together into one video. I know this is probably on a computer with the graphics kind of boosted, but I really feel like this is shaping up. This is looking good. This is looking like the game that I was hoping for. Now, I'm actually really curious about co-op. Like, I wonder if Madam and I could actually play this and have any amount of success. You know, would she be able to hold her own in this game? We might be able to, like, turn the difficulty down. And so, yeah, these are failed assassinations. These are people you can assassinate. There you go. That's someone that you can. No, there was no Sydney Sweeney in my shorts, thank goodness. Doubt it's going to be so good. I need this. Oh, we got a great question from Trill. Yeah, let's stoke the fires of that debate. We need something to discuss. Gaming news kind of fell flat at the end of the week. All right, here we go. Trill says, just to annoy Eugene, where do you think Stellar Blade ranks overall in terms of combat, coming from a studio that nobody's heard of? I would say that this is an interesting discussion, because I know you guys were going back and forth yesterday about, did Stellar Blade get, did it get, what was the expression, like shunned or whatever? Or robbed or whatever. And I know you guys were like discussing sales, popularity, things like that. And Eugene's contention was like, Stellar Blade is not nearly as popular as a lot of people think that it is. And I actually agree with that part of his argument. I do. I think a lot of people think that like Stellar Blade was like incredibly popular. And it's like, well, yeah, because her body takes over Twitter periodically. And now, yeah, snubbed. People thought it got snubbed, not shunned, snubbed. Her body certainly takes over Twitter, especially with 2B in the game now, and the new photo mode. Which, I think, what really encapsulates the sort of the strangeness of that game and how it's not quite as popular as people think, is the way that people were saying it was snubbed. And they were taking, there was a video of 2B, doing the different poses, and her thangs are just thanging all over the place. And people are like, I can't believe this game got passed over for a DLC and a poker game. And I think someone rightfully said, you're not even showing off the game's action or combat. And I think that right there encapsulates why so many people thought that Stellar Blade was just insanely popular, because every time you open up Twitter, people are on there just drooling and posting pictures like that. They're not talking about the combat, right? And I think that gave everybody a false sense of confidence and a false sense of popularity, like, oh man, everybody loves this game. No, a bunch of you guys that are on that wavelength just got on that wavelength and stayed on it for a while. So I agreed, though, that for the Golden Joystick Awards, I was surprised that the PC Gamer, Games Radar, and Edge, they were all the ones that made the nominations. And then the public votes. And they didn't nominate Stellar Blade for soundtrack. That was the only category where I was in agreement. I was like, yeah, I think Stellar Blade should have gotten a nomination for the soundtrack. That was it. Every other category, I thought, no, I don't think it was, as strong or as good as these other games. Yo, what's good, Jez? Jez Corden in the house with a 5 spot. He says Stellar Blade was too sexy. It gave me nightmares. Oh, I want to be mean. I'm not gonna be mean. Jez is self-reporting. He's scared of attractive women. Anyway, I'll keep it light. But no, for real, I think people got a false sense of confidence in that game. Like, oh, it's so popular. Oh my gosh. So I think that debate yesterday about whether or not it was snubbed, I really only think that the category it deserved to be in yesterday was soundtrack, because it does have a really, really good soundtrack. Oh, you missed my screenshot yesterday. It's not just 3 outlets. Omar says, my argument was that it was on pace with games in the genre like Devil May Cry 5, even though it was exclusive to one console, versus Devil May Cry 5, which was on 5 platforms. That it isn't niche as Eugene was making it out to be. On a side note, I found its combat more enjoyable than Devil May Cry 5. It really has a stellar soundtrack. I know, I almost said it, and I stopped. Stellar Blade has a really stellar soundtrack. Am I right, guys? She's got a really stellar... Anyway. So, no, I don't think it got snubbed, but this is the question that's up on the docket. So now that we've said all that, I want to answer the question, which is, where do you think Stellar Blade ranks overall in terms of combat, coming from a studio that nobody's heard of? I think its combat is excellent. Jez with the 5 bomb. That's very kind, Jez. I appreciate you, brother. Bumping the line to 541. He's like, don't let these boys off the hook. He's helping out. I actually think it's excellent. I really, really do. It's, to me, I thought it felt as good and as responsive as Lies of P. It felt as good and as responsive as Sekiro. Now, I would say Sekiro is the king. I think when it comes to melee-based combat, where you're relying on enemy telegraphs and parries and that moment-to-moment, decision-making, I think Sekiro is God. I think it is the best. Now, people are like, no, Bloodborne's better. Stop it. Number one, it's 30 FPS, so it can't be. So just stop. Sekiro's king. Okay, I think Sekiro's king. I think there's like a hemisphere right beneath that of like really, really good, super responsive, excellent combat. And in that category, I would put Ghost of Tsushima, I'd put Lies of P, I would put Stellar Blade. I would put Stellar Blade in the same category of Tsushima and Lies of P. It just, the combat feels great. It feels responsive. It's satisfying. I loved the action focused in Stellar Blade, all her abilities, and then you get the tacky mode. I think it's very, very fun. So I put it up there. It's high level of excellence in Stellar Blade. The Game Awards is silly, in my opinion. Redfall was snubbed. Jez, do you have an opinion on Erdtree getting nominated for Game of the Year? Where do you land on that? I argued in a video yesterday there should just be a category for the best additive content. I think that's broad enough that you can include something like Erdtree or Phantom Liberty last year. Even the stuff that No Man's Sky has been doing, I think should be nominated for its excellence in the realm of additive content. Golden Joystick Awards literally had the best expansion category. I don't have a huge dog in the fight, but I just think it's better for the ceremony. It's better for the awards. It's better for the event. It's better for the stuff that's being recognized to say, this is an expansion, and it's an amazing expansion, instead of saying, this is an amazing expansion, so let's give it a Game of the Year nomination. Like, I think one is far better than the other. Hilly says, was Satisfactory snubbed at the Game Awards? I do find it weird that Satisfactory is not in that one category, Hilly. I do think it's strange. I don't know why it didn't get nominated in that category. It's like it's been so highly praised and highly reviewed. It's maybe just not enough people were aware of it to vote for it. Jez says the problem is there aren't enough landmark DLC to justify. Should probably just be included in an ongoing game. I'm in two minds because my Game of the Year is probably Erdtree, but it's also like, yeah, I actually think it'd be fine to put it into ongoing game because they did that with Phantom Liberty. Like, they did that with Phantom Liberty. Like, and I compared them in my video. I said, they're basically equal in playtime. Like, if you go the distance with Phantom Liberty, you're going to land in 25 to 30 hours. If you do main and side stuff in Erdtree, you're going to be in 25 to 30 hours. Now, you can do way more in Erdtree and get to, like, 50 hours. But generally speaking, and Phantom Liberty, you can buy and play, and you don't have to do anything in Cyberpunk. Erdtree, you've got to play pretty far into the game and do this like very specific quest line and fight Moog, which half the community's not even done that. Yeah. Satisfactory's got like a 96 on Steam. Just do additional content. That's why I said if you did best additional content, you could have things like expansion, DLC, all those free updates that No Man's Sky is doing, things like that. And then Erdtree would dominate, and it would be like, yeah, this is quite literally the best additive content, of the year. It's amazing. It's also like they changed the rules just for Erdtree, which kind of feels crappy and weird, but at the same time, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is glorified DLC. There, I said it. At least it was a new game with entirely new mechanics and entirely new sections, but it did heavily lean on the pre-existing map, which is why I was very glad that Tears of the Kingdom didn't win. I was very much in agreement with no, Tears of the Kingdom leaned so heavily on Breath of the Wild, I did not want it to win, and I was glad that it didn't. Like Erdtree? Well, Erdtree doesn't build on an existing map. It's a whole new area and a whole new map. Erdtree had a new map. Yeah, but like the base map for Tears is the original map, is it not? And then like you can like go up in the sky and stuff. Those three outlets are the only ones involved in the Golden Joystick Awards that are also involved in the Game Awards. Oh. Trill says, my only argument for soundtrack, it could have replaced 3 out of 6 of the nominees. Highland Song, Astrobot, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Haunt Hill, Silent Hill, Shin Megami Tensei. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the Highland Song and the Haunt game could have easily been replaced by Stellar Blade for soundtrack. Yeah, but it had new mechanics. No, yeah, Erdtree had new mechanics for sure. It had its own. The reason that they made the new mechanics for Erdtree was because they didn't want people to go in and be overpowered and stomp their way through it. So I tend to agree with what Jez is saying, though. It just feels kind of bad that just last year, an incredibly impressive, award-worthy, standalone, new area expansion got placed into ongoing game. This year, Erdtree, an award-worthy, brand new area, standalone expansion, gets an exception made for it. It's like, oh no, we're gonna allow DLC to be nominated for Game of the Year this year, and it's like, yeah, come on. It's like Phantom Liberty and Erdtree on so many levels are very similar in what they did and what they brought to their games. And just last year, it's like it was an ongoing game. Why wouldn't you just do the same thing this year? You have entire undergrounds and massive mechanic overhauls in Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, no. I'm not taking away from Tears of the Kingdom. I just didn't want it to win Game of the Year. I didn't want it to. It was like, and Baldur's Gate 3 undeniably deserved it. I mean, that was not even a debate. The concept of the Game Awards is weird in general, really. Games are such a fluid thing compared to music and movies. Hard to pin specific awards down when games can be evolving products. Well, and I think you're actually putting your finger on, Jez, why so many people are looking at the Game of the Year nominations and they're angry and confused because they're seeing Astrobot, Balatro, and Erdtree all in the same category. And they're like, Erdtree brought so much more content and so much more quality than a mobile poker game. And I think that's why I think what you're saying is true, and it's demonstrated by the variety in the nominations. It's not just a bunch of big blockbusters anymore. It's not all of it's not a bunch of big budget titles. It's titles made by a single person or titles made by a team of like 30 to 50 people, I think that's why the gaming war is losing their touch. They only go by their own way. Yeah, I mean, I do think that there's also an element of irritation from people because they come to every showcase wanting those big blockbuster titles, and those are actually showing up less often now because they're harder to make. And they also are harder to land, as evidenced by like Star Wars Outlaws, like big budget, big IP, and it doesn't stick the landing, Balatro has pretty huge impact. I know so many people addicted. My entire team's addicted to Balatro. I'm scared to play it. It didn't hook me. I tried it and I was just kind of like, it didn't hook me. Yeah. Now, a game that did hook me, that I was very satisfied with and did a full play. I did a full run, a full successful run finally, was Inscription. I kept hearing people talk about Inscription, and I finally tried it. And man, I got hooked. I had a great run. I had a thing where every time a squirrel died, it went back into my hand, and it made me basically unbeatable. So I constantly had like a whole hand of them, which means I could always protect myself from damage in virtually every fight. It was so fun. It was so fun. Not stellar enough for you? Yeah, it wasn't stellar enough. It didn't have enough of those stellar things. A question here from Hadigan. Lono, many have stated there is not big enough DLC for its own category. Let's discuss just this year. Erdtree, WoW, D4, Starfield, No Man's Sky, Destiny, all launched big DLC just this year. Here's something I think we should be okay with. Let's just say they created the DLC category. Did you finish it? No, I just finally got a full run done, and it was really fun, and then I had to move on to other games because my backlog is stupid. But let's just say there's only like 3, maybe 4, award-worthy DLC that year. Who cares? There's your nominations. Vote. Like, why is that a problem? Like, I don't think you're going to ever have a year where there's like one DLC. Now, that's why I said to protect against that, because that could happen. Let's say that it could. It certainly is possible that we go through a year and there's just no big updates or DLCs for any games, right? That's why I said you would do the best additive content category, because No Man's Sky is not doing expansions or DLC, but what they've added to their game is insane. Like, it's incredible what Hello Games has been doing. Have you guys been paying attention to No Man's Sky? It's nuts what they've added to their game. I can't believe it's not in the best ongoing category. They got best community support, but they're not in the best ongoing category, and I'm shocked. But best additive content, I think, protects against being like, oh, there's not enough DLC or expansions this year. Well, additive content is a pretty big umbrella. And that's why I said in my video, like, Shadow of the Erdtree deserves to be praised for what it is, not what it isn't. it should be praised as an expansion. It should be praised as DLC. It shouldn't be praised as Game of the Year, because like that's not, you're praising it for something that it isn't. Does that make sense? It would be like giving The Penguin Movie of the Year. It's like, it's not a movie. It's a TV show. It has an unfair advantage. Like, it can tell an amazing story over 8 hours instead of 2.5 to 3.5. Like, that's significantly, you see what I'm saying? It's way better to award a TV show like The Penguin for being an excellent TV show. Like, honor it and reward it and give it accolades for what it is, not what it isn't. I think that's just a far better approach to this kind of situation. So, you guys can use that question command, by the way, that these guys are using in chat, and your question will pop up right here on the screen like this. That is reserved for members. And you guys have probably got about 30 to 40 minutes to secure the pain. If you want to make Hilly and I go through pain tonight, you need 9 more members for the first one. At 550, Hilly and I will have to play Limbs tonight, which is an incredibly stupid looking, frustrating game. If you can get it all the way to 600, you can make us play Cuphead together, which should be hysterical. If you guys haven't ever been here for a Friday night stream with Hilly, they are such a blast. He's my British brother from across the pond, and we have some drinks, and it's a good time. All right, see you, Jez. Thanks for stopping by, dude. I appreciate you, man. Zinthos with a VIP. Thank you so much. And it bumps the line to 542. Guys, don't forget your renewals count. Renew. Celebrate those renewals. You know what I mean? And Stonespire says, come on, boys. Don't let them off the hook. And he bumps it to 543. Stonespire's probably going to try to tee up a 5 gifted bomb. But Jack Garland's ready for it, and he does the 5 bomb. And he takes us to 48 and then 49 with another single from Stonespire. And there it is. There it is. You have secured the first stretch goal. Hilly and I now have to play Limbs tonight, which looks terrible. Now, if you want Cuphead, you got to go a little bit further. We're trying to have a big send-off before I take a week off tonight with Hilly, and you guys are making it happen. Thank you so much. We'll see if somebody comes in and and just steals the glory, with 150 bomb. We haven't had... every once in a while, that'll happen. You got to watch out for these guys. They'll come in and steal the glory. And there it is. Joker Quinn's going to do an Agent of Chaos and moves us a little bit further along. I do owe you guys 5 members now, though. We did hit 550. I'm going to give 5 members. Every 25, I give 5. And don't forget, guys, the Super Chat goal also helps add to the total. If we get 2 more Super Chats, it's at 8 out of 10. You don't just make confetti in the chat. You can add to the total. I gift and add to the total. You guys can gift through me. So thank you, everybody who continues to do Super Chats. And there it is. Zinthos is going to bump the line as well. All right, we got another question coming in. Spice King, using that members only question command. No, SDO, it has to be a 5 or higher. It has to be 5 or higher on the Super Chat, because I'm going to end up taking some of the Super Chats and turning them into gifteds. Does that make sense? I'm spending 25 of those Super Chats. I'm turning around and giving it back to the community. So that's why it has to be 5 or higher. So here we got a question from Spice King. Not a question, but a reminder that Black Friday deals have hit the PlayStation Store. You can get Rebirth and Remake together for $60, Stellar Blade for $50, and many more. Thank you so much for that reminder. And a 10 bomb from Kardock Ren. He takes us to 562. Appreciate you so much. Joe Kane says, skipping Game Awards. I'll catch trailers later. BS narrative trying to get pushed. What? I'm confused. What narrative do you think they're trying to push with trailers? I have never understood that criticism for the event, by the way. Oh, all these commercials and trailers. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I tune in. Don't you? What? When you go to the movie theater, do you go 30 minutes late so that you don't have to watch all the trailers? Yo, Milk Dud, not Mike. Milk Dud renews their membership. If it's a member plus or higher, it counts. Upgrades count as 2. So upgrade your memberships, boys, to member plus. Tack Raven Cyber Academy says, hope all is well. Followed you for a while, just now subbing. Well, thank you so much for subbing to the channel. I appreciate you so much. I always see that check mark and I'm like, yo, he's got a check mark. How'd you get that check mark? Looks like you've been making content for about a year over there. It's a pretty good sized channel. Congratulations. Lone Wolf with a $5 super chat says, here you go, Avowed hating mother effer. One more super chat. Thank you so much, Lone Wolf. You guys can make some confetti. You want to be there on time so you can see the trailers? That's what I'm saying. Why do people get so angry about the fact that there are commercials and trailers during the Game Awards? It's a super expensive event, and you get to see a bunch of trailers. You meant the narrative about awards. Oh, okay, what are you, Joe? You gotta help me out here. What narrative are you talking about? Yeah, let's have a conversation about this. What narrative is being pushed about awards? Bajenga with a member plus renewal and bumps the line to 564. And there it is. Liquid Smoke makes a confetti. Add my milestone for next week. That's right. I'll do it. Oh, that's perfect. 565, and then I'm gonna bump it to 570. I'm adding my 5 to the total right now, and then I'm gonna reset the goal. You guys can do it again. You can keep. I will gift 5 members. So when you guys do enough super chats, I add to the total. You can make me add to the total, and Liquid Smoke just made me do it. That's perfect. Here we go. Let me gift the 5 from the super chatters. If you get a gifted membership right now, it's from the super chatters. So make sure and say thank you to the people that have been super chatting. It's not from me. It's from them. We don't need to see 10 Game Pass ads. Yes, you do. How else do you think we're going to have the event if you don't have 10 Game Pass ads? Which, there's not 10. But, you know those Game Pass ads are paying for the event, right? Like, helping the event happen. Would you rather have to see, like, an ad for Audi or Coca-Cola instead? We get gaming trailers and gaming advertisements. We get advertisements for the thing that we're interested in. I hate that there's so much negativity about the Game Awards. Why can't people just make it an exciting time for everyone to come together? That's what I'm saying. Joe says, who's picking these games getting pushed? They pick certain games that are multi-plat. Okay, let's keep going here. Let's keep going, Joe. I'm trying to understand your position. You're upset they're picking games that are multi-plat, or you think there's something going on? What do you think is happening? So they're picking games that are multi-plat. Do you feel like they're not deserving or something? Astrobot is up for Game of the Year. Single platform game made by like 30 to 50 people. Yeah, that Coke commercial's terrifying, Jack. Don't forget to take a drink every time they say world premiere. Suede, we're not trying to get anybody killed. World premiere. I just watch for trailers. I hope they wrap up the acceptance speeches. I do hope the please wrap it up doesn't show up this year. No. They overreacted. The previous year, you had people going way too long, and it was obnoxious. Like, Christopher Judge is great, but letting him go on for that long was ridiculous. Right? But also, it shouldn't be like, hey, we're so honored to receive this award. I'm so thankful that oh, I have to leave now. Okay, like they went to the other extreme. DLC, not a game, all of a sudden it changes to suit the narrative. Okay, Joe, okay. We might have some agreement here. Suddenly changing the rules so that a DLC can get Game of the Year. You're saying to suit the narrative. What narrative? What narrative are you talking about? We're in agreement. I agree with you. They changed the rules to let a DLC get nominated for Game of the Year. I don't like it. You're just talking about the DLC being added. So when you say narrative, that's what you're referring to. Okay. I understand now. I wasn't sure what you were trying to say about them pushing a narrative. I'm like, Keighley has been traditionally non-preachy, non-virtue signaling with his platform. He just doesn't do it. He doesn't get up on stage and get all preachy about stuff. People are giving him all kinds of grief about, like, you should be talking about this, international situation or that situation. Is like, what are you talking about? Dante Masaru gifts a member and bumps the line to 571. You guys are getting closer and closer. This is it. When we hit 600, we're done for the week. But if you hit that, Hilly and I have to play Cuphead tonight. Eugene says, I'm with you, Joe. I refuse to watch because of it. Is there anybody right now out there that, like, you're not going to watch because of the because of the nomination? Are you going to boycott? How many of you are going to boycott? Hogwarts Legacy is $21 on PS5. That's a really good price. Elden Ring has a chance to win. That's why it's nominated. No, I'm less excited about watching. Not me. Of course, no. Nah, I'm going to watch. Yeah, I'm going to co-stream it. If Shadows of the Erdtree wins, I won't want the Game Awards ever again, says Dave. Just wait if it actually wins it, says Steven. No boycott for me. Pacey Play says not watching. I just watch for the world premieres. Only reason I watch is for the trailers. I will hate watch, says Hilly. BS, people watch for the world premieres. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, I watch for the trailers, Paul, for 100%. 100%. Oh, I watch for the trailers. I'm going to tune in just for the trailers and premieres. LOL, not me. I don't know if it's boycotting because of the DLC thing. Just makes me less interested. Okay, you'll watch my co-stream, but you refuse to watch the direct stream? Yeah, Eugene, will you watch my co-stream of it, or are you just going to absolutely back out? If you co-stream, I'll watch it. I will co-stream, yeah. We are one of the official co-streams of the event. Keighley always sends me, they have like a little kit that they send. You just have to apply, and I've always gotten it. You're not watching. Okay. Bless you. Thank you. Remember back in the day when Overwatch won over Uncharted 4 and Doom? Yep. Why do you think it's the most popular award show? It's not because of the awards. We have loads of award shows that nobody cares about for that reason. Yo, what's good, Broken Lobo? I kind of agree with what you're saying, Paul. Like, I think one of the reasons it does so well is there's this large reservoir of passive viewership from people that are, like, basically just there for the trailers. Like, think about the general public. The general public is just tuning in for them trailers. They're like, oh, I might see GTA 6. You know what I'm saying? Don't some devs get a bonus for being up for Game of the Year? So some devs lost because of Shadow of the Erdtree being up for Game of the Year. I don't know if there are bonuses attached to Game of the Year. I thought there was one where if they had a certain Metacritic, they got a bonus or something. Am I misremembering? I thought there was a Metacritic score bonus at a company once that we learned about. But I didn't know if there were are there game companies that do bonuses if you get a Game of the Year nomination? Golden Joystick was yesterday. Hardly anybody cared. Well, and yeah, I think in general there is a larger draw for Keighley's event, and some of it's because he gets celebrities. That's expensive. He gets big trailers and world premieres, right? Like, you know, there's a lot of commercials, you know? Hang on. Eugene says, I watched for both. Now that the awards are a sham, it's not worth my time. I can watch the trailer separately in better quality on my... Oh, no, I won't be there. Okay. Eugene is 100%. He's out. He is out. He's folding his arms. He is folding his arms and saying no. Game Awards to me is just entertainment, says Dante. I have no emotional attachment to whomever wins or doesn't. I just appreciate the acknowledgement of a medium that provides stellar experiences. Yeah, I don't ever feel like I'm cheering for a game. I mean, I think the one year I wanted Ragnarok to win. And the reason I wanted Ragnarok to win is because I liked it so much. I didn't care that Elden Ring won. I was like, I'm happy with whoever wins because they were both great. Who took Game of the Year yesterday? Black Myth Wukong. Yeah, Black Myth Wukong, which didn't surprise me at all. That was a fan vote, and there was no competing with Black Myth if the fans are voting. What happens if there are live audience boos when he says Erdtree? I don't think there will be boos. I don't think the industry will boo Erdtree. I think people are very much on the, you know, there's a lot of media darling treatment for Elden Ring, and a lot of it's deserved. I mean, if we're honest, a lot of it's deserved. Video cannot be monetized. Sony State of Play Live. Why would it take this long for that to show up? That's from like months ago. And a 5-bomb from Belphegor. And he says, come on, boys. We're super close to hitting 600. Let's hit 600 and let's get out of here. Let's do it. And then tonight, you can watch us play. Yeah, the Sony State of Play Live from 2 years ago just got a copyright claim on it. The details. It's like 30 seconds. GFO2 Neek Beats. I don't even... I can't erase the song. Just trim out the segment. I don't give a frick. All these stupid false claims on old videos. I just literally trim them out. Trim them out. And a $5 super chat from Will Broke Boy Lewis. It's difficult to support an award show that seems to want to change the rules each year to suit what they feel at the time. What do you feel? Were there rules that you guys feel like? What rules got changed last year? What rules got changed last year? I don't even remember. The Thunderdome is open. The Thunderdome is... Oh, it's a PvP game. Nope. Oh, that's an Elgato Stream Deck. I thought, oh, the Steam Deck's doing a Black Friday sale. No. Nope. Last year, putting Cyberpunk in best ongoing. Cyberpunk was pigeoned into ongoing. What's wrong with... hang on a minute, though. What's the phrasing for ongoing game? A lot of times people get all wound up about this kind of stuff. And then if you look at the phrasing, I don't know. I feel like it qualified. Disclaimer, I mentioned I have no emotional attachment, but I'd be lying if I wasn't over the moon if a game that I really enjoyed won Game of the Year. I'm satisfied enough when a said game wins a particular category. Awarded to a game for outstanding development of ongoing content that evolves the player experience over time. I feel like that's generic enough to include Phantom Liberty. Awarded to a game for outstanding development of ongoing content that evolves the player experience over time. So I guess you could say is the way that's phrased is Phantom Liberty didn't do that, but you're missing, I think, a huge element of what happened with Cyberpunk leading up to that moment. They had been doing free DLC, free updates, free content. They completely overhauled entire systems every year leading up to that release. Phantom Liberty was like the crown jewel on top of everything they had been doing in Cyberpunk. It had never included DLC before. Okay, but I think that at the very least, it made sense that that year in particular, Cyberpunk did something that was worthy of like, hey, that was really impressive what you guys pulled off. And again, they labeled it like right now, when you go to Best Ongoing, Destiny 2, Diablo, Final Fantasy XIV, Fortnite, and Helldivers 2. Those are games, right? Like, those are games. Those aren't expansions. So I get what you're saying. Like, Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty isn't a game. I remember debating this with you guys, and I kind of agreed. I was like, yeah, it's not an ongoing game. But I also thought it making the exception that time made sense because it was like, Cyberpunk has quite literally transformed its game over the years with all these free updates. So it's like, if you're going to make an exception, at least that one made sense. It was like, it wasn't like Cyberpunk didn't do anything for 2 or 3 years, dropped an expansion, and then won Best Ongoing. They had completely overhauled the entire game. So it doesn't have to be, in my opinion, a live service game. It can be a game that's like, completely transforming itself over time. Like No Man's Sky has been in that category, and No Man's Sky is in like a weird gray area. Like it's not a live service game, but it's kind of become a live service game, especially with the expeditions. But a large reason that No Man's Sky gets nominated, why? Because of all those free ongoing updates that they do. And No Man's Sky has been nominated for Best Ongoing Game. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised Cult of the Lamb didn't get anything. Why not community support then? Like with Baldur's Gate 3 this year? If it was free updates for things they said would be in the game before release also. A lot of what Cyberpunk did wasn't like adding stuff they said would be there. It was fixing fundamental problems and reworking entire systems based off of player feedback. So, I mean, that's a significant element of what they did. They were like basically receiving player feedback and overhauling systems to improve them. Did you see the new paywall for Diablo 4? Everybody who owns the expansion gets ongoing content, others don't. That's so bad. I have to think about that. I need more details to weigh in on it. Why don't they just implement a DLC category? It really simplifies all of this, doesn't it? Honestly, this debate's kind of pointless if you just add a DLC category, because then ongoing can stay pure. Best game of the year stays pure, you know? Hilly wants to know, what's the wording for game of the year? Well, let's go look. Recognizing a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. Shadow of the Erd Tree is not a game. It's an expansion in an existing game. The people that have tried to argue that Erd Tree's a game, they're not arguing well. They're not arguing according to logic. They're just arguing. It's just special pleading. It's like, well, because I think it's a game, it's a game. It's like, okay. It's the the way that people are arguing it's a game is just like, listen to the fallacy of special pleading and try to tell me that that's not what's going on. Special pleading is a logical fallacy where someone tries to create an unjustified exception to a general rule or principle, essentially applying a double standard by making a claim that only applies to them or their specific situation without providing a valid reason for why they should be treated differently. Like, this is textbook special pleading. It's like, no, Shadow of the Erdtree is a game because it did this stuff. And it's like, there are tons of expansions that have done that over the years, and we never, ever have called them games. We've never been like, man, that Phantom Liberty game was so great, which is why we debated whether or not Phantom Liberty should be nominated for ongoing game, because it's not a game. It's like, it's not a game. This is textbook logical fallacy. That's what it is. We don't say this about any other expansion, any other DLC. You are arguing fallaciously if you all know Erdtree's a game. Go to logic school, man. That's not the way this works. You don't just get commit linguistic shifts like this just because. Erdtree is the most expensive game nominated for Game of the Year. What? It's more expensive than Rebirth? And... Huh? He said because you can get 40 plus hours out of it? So? Oh, you said it wasn't compelling, Trill. Yeah, I don't care how many hours you can get out of it. Do you know how many expansions in Destiny turned into way more hours than Erdtree for people because of how long it takes to level, how long it takes to grind, how long it gets to take to the end game and then run the raid? Are we really going to argue playtime? No. Again, it's textbook special pleading. You're trying to make an exception because you think Erdtree's great. We don't call expansion games. We've never done that. Phantom Liberty, you can easily get anywhere from 25 to over 30 hours out of. That's the length of a full game. Nobody's calling Phantom Liberty a game. Nobody. To the point that we argued last year was like, well, Phantom Liberty's not a game, it's an expansion, and it's in the ongoing game category. It was weird. It's like we have games listed, and then you had Phantom Liberty listed. When you can boot it up and click on Elden Ring, not Erdtree. I got hundreds of hours out of Destiny expansions. I'd get hundreds of hours out of a season. I think expensive, he means lucrative. Yeah, I mean, if you mainline Erdtree, it takes around 20 to 25 hours is what I read. And Phantom Liberty is the exact same. And then if you go completionist, it's like 25 to 30. And if you go completionist with Erdtree, you can hit like 50 hours, but that's like literally doing everything. It's also not a fair comparison. So much of what you're going to do in Erdtree is quite literally exploring a map that traversal is eating up so much of your time. It's not a fair comparison. Traversal and fast travel in Cyberpunk is going to expedite your playtime significantly. Significantly. How many hours did you get out of it if you don't own Elden Ring? It's not even if you don't own Elden Ring. If you don't own Elden Ring and haven't played Elden Ring a bunch and did a very specific and weird quest line that a lot of people had to use guides for and fight one of the more challenging, more annoying bosses in the game. Half the community didn't even do it. If it was a standalone release like Miles Morales, it would be different. I agree with you. Because it would be a standalone game. It wouldn't be something that requires a significant amount of investment in the base game. You can play Phantom Liberty without ever playing Cyberpunk. You can't say that about Erdtree. I could get 5,000 hours out of Erdtree because I suck balls. Doesn't make it a game. Imagine the total rage if Final Shape was nominated for Game of the Year. Exactly. This is why I'm saying if you ever get into studying logical fallacies, this is textbook. I mean, it is. If you took a class on speech and debate and you were going through logical fallacies and you got to special pleading, this is a perfect example. You would say, this is special pleading. Traditionally and historically, games are defined as games, and expansions and DLCs are defined in this way. And because Shadow of the Erdtree was so great and praised and beloved, everybody just started saying, yeah, it's basically a game. It should be considered for Game of the Year. You're making an exception just because. And it's like, you could do the exact same thing with Phantom Liberty, with any of the expansions that have ever hit Destiny. And everybody would say, that's ridiculous. That's not a game. Ding, 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 ding. Fallacy of special pleading. You're making an exception for Erdtree just because. There's no justification for it. It's textbook bait. We're all talking about it. I don't know if it's bait. Someone's not getting recognized appropriately, so I'm not recognizing the awards. Right, when you have games like a Dragon Infinite Wealth with an incredibly great score that would deserve to be up there, or even Prince of Persia and The Lost Crown, it has a great score for what it was and how many people reviewed it, and 87 is incredibly impressive for that game. Either of those games deserve to be up there more than Erdtree. And I know people get all stuffy about this, and they're like, are you kidding me? Games like Balatro and Astrobot are nowhere near the size and quality and scope of Elden Ring's Erdtree. Shut the frick up. Shut up. Not everything needs to be some big, huge, expansive, open world, dense thing that lasts for 20 to 25 hours. I got a massive amount of enjoyment and mirth and fun out of Astrobot, and it's nowhere near the size of Erdtree. That's not how you define a game's quality or whether or not it should win something. Eugene says, some devs spent 5+ years working on a game, released it in 2024, and From spent a couple years tacking onto a game they'd already built that totally relies on the base game to function. It's BS. Yeah, I think that's another great way to look at it. Yeah. Derek says, I got maybe 70 hours out of the 3 DLCs for Phoenix Rising. I love them and the game. I would have loved to see them in a DLC category against other DLCs. Right. I'm going to keep coming back to the same statement. Shadow of the Erdtree deserves to be praised for what it is, not what it isn't. It should be in a category just dominating as this is the best expansion we have ever seen, or this is the best expansion we've seen this year. That's where it should be. Yeah, devs are also taking bigger risk. This is exactly why I'm so bummed that video bombed yesterday. We shouldn't have done it at the end of the day. We probably should have just saved it for today. But I argue, I think, rather well that the precedent set by this is bad. You're setting a really, really bad precedent. Because now big monolithic established games can just tack on to themselves and just perch on the Game of the Year category because everybody's going to give them media darling treatment. GTA 6 comes out, dominates, goes crazy, and in 2 years they can be like, yeah, here's a 20 to 30 hour DLC. Game of the Year nomination. You get to rely on institutional knowledge, existing systems, existing game, existing fandom, existing popularity. It's like, come on, man, what are we doing here? Make a DLC category so that everybody gets a chance to shine when they deliver a new game and not an expansion. The outlets are voting for it to be Game of the Year, so it's also on them. Oh, for sure. I think going after Keighley is fair because it's like, hey, Jeff, it's your event. All you had to say was, we're getting an overwhelming amount of people voting for Erdtree. We're going to have to address this in the future and have a category for that. We need a category for DLC. They have one at the Golden Joystick Awards, and they had plenty of things that got nominated. Him changing the rules last minute, I'm not okay with that. I thought that was lame. You can go at him, but you can also go at the outlets and say, listen, y'all, you were tasked with voting for the games of the year, and it's not a game. This shouldn't need explained to you. A lot of you guys went to school for, how to write. You know, some of you are probably English majors, for Pete's sakes. You know? The outlets should have known better, but Keeley could have just said no. I'm an hour back on the stream. Glad you like the bourbon. My man. Thank you, Charles Freeman. All right, you guys are going to run out of time here. I'm going to give you about 15 to 20 minutes. We need 24 more members if you guys want to make Hilly and I play Cuphead tonight. You can get us there with Super Chats, by the way. 8 more Super Chats, and I'll add 5. The Super Chats need to be $5 or higher. So if you guys don't like gifting, you can do it through Super Chats. If I try to be the absolute most charitable about this, okay? Because I like Keeley, and I think he gets a lot of grief, okay? If I try to make it as charitable as possible, I think he got an overwhelming amount of votes for Erdtree, and it was like, what do we do? We can't suddenly make a DLC category, because then we'd have to reach out to all the outlets and say, hey, we now need votes for best DLC of the year. We're adding a new category, which might have been pretty easy, honestly. You just email everybody back and say, hey, we need your top 5 DLC of the year. We're adding a new category because Erdtree got too many votes, and we think that's the better pivot, and I think you would have probably gotten enough votes. But if I believe the best about the man, he probably didn't have time logistically to do that. Like, a lot of these people get together over the weeks and have discussions in their offices, and they decide what they're going to vote for, and they wouldn't have had time to just suddenly throw together their top 5 DLC. So if I believe the best about the man, he got an overwhelming amount of votes for Erdtree, and he's like, well, what the frick do we do? We can't just make another category out of thin air. So we've got to put it somewhere. It deserves praise. It deserves awards, clearly, because it's getting all these votes. And he makes an exception. That's the most charitable read I can have of the situation. Derek says, listen, I got to say, I'm glad to hear your take. I've been sick of the Elden Ring hype train since the year before the effing game was released. I liked it, but I've always been honest about where I feel like it makes missteps. And the purists don't agree with me, and I don't care. He made a mistake. They should just add a new category next year, update the wording for Game of the Year to exclude DLC. But if he would have done that, Hilly, again, I'm just trying to be as charitable as I can, he would have been like, well, I guess that means that this year Erdtree doesn't get any awards. You know? Derek said it twice, he meant it. A lot of times he'll say something twice so that I actually see it. He's ornery like that. He's my brother. He's like, you're going to read what I said. Which we've got to get him a membership. We've got to. You guys have got to scramble anyway. We need 24 more members. We got to get Derek back in here on a membership, dadgummit. He's got to be able to watch tonight. Hilly's coming back. Yeah, the Game Awards is once again not saving my votes. It did this last year. I vote and it doesn't save my votes. I leave and come back and my votes are not cast. It's got to be some kind of an issue with I'm going to need to do it in another browser. That's what it is. I bet you it's like that issue that I was having with ordering a PS5 Pro. It's some kind of a caching issue with Chrome. I'm gonna have to do it in Edge. And a 5-bomb from Cat Uncle. He says, come on, boys, and another one from Soul Train. That's 582. So close. Gotta get Derek in here. We gotta get Feed back in the fold. It's so frustrating that we cannot get Feed. A dadgum vote. Or a member. Doing my part for the bro. Thank you, Soul Train. Same thing happened to me. Like, oh, like it won't save your votes or whatever? Yo, OG DSB, that counts. If you're member plus and above and you renew, it counts in the total. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll need to like log in on Twitter. I'm still scared to go to x.com. I'm still scared to do it. Oh, let's see. I tried voting last year and it didn't save. Create a new account feed. Yeah, at this point, I feel like you're just going to have to create a new account feed. I don't know what to tell you. You know? I don't know what to tell you, my man. It's like your account's been marked. You've been marked. I remember when I thought Hilly's your brother, and he said yes, but with different mothers. Oh man. Oh, I have to use the app. Some of these devs work for years and hope to be nominated. The guys made Erdtree. Yeah, I'm with y'all. I'm with y'all. It's frustrating. I don't like getting all sanctimonious and like, let's feel bad for devs or whatever, but dude, why let me get in? Choose a different verification. I don't understand. And a 20 bomb from Siriu, and he says, enough's enough. There it is. Let's really hope that Derek and Feed finally get memberships. It's been so long. There we go. I'm watching the chat. Gatorinator got one. It seems like it's going back through the earlier names that we always see. I'm seeing Skadinator. I see A9 Asinine. I see names that I recognize. Dadgummit. And of course it happens right at the end. We can't keep going. I don't want to push it. And MASH isn't here, so I don't want to push it. But I feel like it's going back through. I feel like those are the names we always see at the beginning. All right, I'm trying to vote on Edge. Let's see if it saves it. No. Oh, no, it saved it. It saved it on Edge. It's got to be some kind of a caching issue with Chrome. I'm all logged in on Edge and it's working. Has my long-term member that gets gifted gotten unlocked? I'm not sure what you're talking about, Kevin. Jeff's rigging the voting. Anyone who's not voting for Shadows of the Erdtree is not saving. Yeah, the same thing happened last year. It wouldn't let me say, wouldn't save my votes. My personal game of the year was Stellar Blade. Yeah, I liked it the most. And I totally am okay with it not getting nominated. I know that it's not at that level. I know it didn't get that level of reception or praise, but I loved it because it really reminded me of Sekiro's combat, but there was just like a fluidity and an action to it that was really, really fun. So like Feed, we seem to be locked out. Has any long-term member that's gotten gifted? Yeah, I don't know. Pronator, thank you so much for renewing 13 months. I don't know what happened. I truly don't know what happened. This is SkillUp's take. All right, hang on a second. I'm going to listen. I like SkillUp. I respect Ralph. I'm just curious what he says. I probably won't agree with him.
Speaking of maidenless, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree got a Game of the Year nomination, leading many people to be like, And like, look, fair enough, this is, after all, a DLC, not a standalone game. You need to own Elden Ring in order to play it, and you also need to be pretty far into Elden Ring in order to access it. Elden Ring is, of course, one of the greatest games ever made, and the 2022 Game of the Year winner. Is it fair, then, that an expansion to that game be given a Game of the Year nomination given that the base game has already won that prize. The flip side is that Shadow of the Erdtree is not just any other DLC. It's like 50 to 80 hours long, which is roughly twice the size of Sekiro, which won Game of the Year back in 2018.
Hang on.
The Erdtree is not just any other DLC. It's like 50 to 80 hours long.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's not 50 to 80 hours long. No. All of my research indicates that if you basically mainline it, it's around 25 to 30 hours. So that's not even factually correct. You can hit 50 to 80, but Erdtree itself is not that long. It isn't. It's 40 hours tops. If you go Shadow of the Erdtree, time to beat, right here, how long to beat? When focusing on main objectives, Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree is 25 and a half hours. If you strive to do everything, you're going to hit around 51 hours to obtain 100% completion. I told you, I'm telling you, Erdtree's not longer than Sekiro. No, yeah, it's not longer than Sekiro. I told you, people were really exaggerating how big Erdtree was. It's like, it's not that long. When I went and Googled it, I couldn't believe it. I was like, wait, this is roughly the same length as Phantom Liberty. Now, you can get a lot more out of Erdtree than Phantom Liberty because of the size of the open world, but that again is that you can't always compare that. So much of Erdtree that can extend your playtime is just traversal and exploration. Yo, a 5-bomb from Jamie. You guys are still going, trying to get Feed and Derek. I appreciate the effort. All right, hang on. I want to see what else Ralph has to say. Hang on.
Which is roughly twice the size of Sekiro, which won Game...
Yeah, see, so right now what we have is a faulty premise. So if we're breaking down Ralph's argument logically, I like him and respect him, but I'm going to break down what he's saying logically. We now have a faulty premise. The faulty premise is Erdtree is twice the size of Sekiro. No, that's demonstrably false. That is untrue. So, building on the faulty premise, where do we go from here?
Game of the Year back in 2018. It's the second highest rated release of the year on OpenCritic. Just a smidge.
That's true.
Behind Astrobot. And it's also just extraordinary. Like, pretend this was a standalone release. Would this deserve a Game of the Year nomination? Most likely, yes. Still, there's plenty.
That's probably the only point that he made that I would say is somewhat compelling, is that if it were a standalone, it would likely be then voted for Game of the Year. We've all said that, right? Like if it was a spin-off Miles Morales game, yes, it would be. But it's not. If Phantom Liberty would have been a standalone package for around 25 to 30 hours, if it would have been a spin-off game like Miles, Phantom Liberty likely would have been nominated for Game of the Year, but it's not. It's an expansion. So we're still in special pleading category. You're still just making an unjustified exception. You haven't justified the exception yet. And again, his premise was faulty.
Plenty of back and forth about it on social media, with awards organizer Jeff Keighley copping a lot of flack for it, but the truth is, it's actually not his fault. There's a panel of judges who collectively voted for it, and were the game not such an incredibly worthwhile offering, it wouldn't have got a nomination. I guess this is my way of saying, I totally see both sides, but I think I'm more in line with the argument that Shadow of the Erdtree deserves its spot because it earned it on its own merits. And if another future DLC for a different game comes along, and it's the same level of astonishing quality, then I would vote in exactly the same way this year, which is to say that I would put Outer Wilds in every box.
No, I don't agree with you, Eugene. Standalone Erdtree would not be Game of the Year. No, it would get a nomination. It would. The art style, the size, the world, the fights, all of it. Yeah. Erdtree is missing tons of itemization, a significant number of quests, only requires 4 bosses to beat it. It's not worthy of Game of the Year on its own. I think it would get nominated. I do. I think Phantom Liberty would have been nominated if it was ripped out and stood on its own. Yeah. I have the clip right before where he talks Balatro. Well, we don't need to turn this into like a skill up reaction video. We need to go to Writer's Room anyway. We're almost to 3 hours. I don't like these streams getting longer than 3 hours. Really, really solid turnout for the end of the week. And again, guys, as a reminder, I am out of town next week. And if you want to continue hanging out with us today, the show's not over. The show is not over. We are going to the Writer's Room. This is just the opportunity to hang out, talk, chill. We haven't done Green Room in a while. We may end up doing Green Room today to motivate people to upgrade to Member Plus. That's where you just get to kind of chill with me and I play games and we just kind of vibe and it's not so structured. Writer's Room's not really going to need to be structured, but whenever we get this many members in a week, I want to welcome people in to that extended content. This is extended behind-the-scenes content that you get access to as a member. And if it's a gifted membership, it's motivation to upgrade when we go to something like Green Room. But tonight with Hilly, in 8 hours, we will be going live with Hilly and playing all of the games. We've got 3 games to play for you tonight because you guys hit the stretch goal, so thank you so much for making that possible. You can't play Erdtree on its own. There's no smith in Erdtree, no vendors for several key items, no flask upgrades. Right, but Eugene, in the hypothetical that we're considering, they would rectify all those issues. They would ensure that those pieces were in place. They would just let you like fast travel to the hold where all of the smithing stuff is. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? Like, they would rectify that. It could stand on its own because they would give you access to all of those things. They would say, this is like when Miles Morales is built inside of the same map of New York, they would just bake in a lot of that stuff from Elden Ring and ship it on its own. You know what I mean? All right, we got to go. I don't want to hit 3 hours. So guys, thank you so much for a strong week. If you can't come with us because you're not a member, I am sorry that some of you just continue to not be able to get a gifted member. If you want to come with us right now, you got to click join. If you click join, that's including the hours you spent in the base game to get there. If he's saying that Erdtree is that long because he's including the base game of Elden Ring, then again his premise is faulty. That's a faulty premise. That's not saying that Erdtree is twice the length of Sekiro and you're including the base game of Elden Ring that's called stacking the deck. Like, you can't do that. He's talking about me? Oh. All right. Thanks so much for being a member to this channel. If you got a membership this week, holy cow, big week. 608 members. I gifted all the members that I owe. Actually, I owe a little bit more. I owe 5 here at the buzzer. So if you get a gifted membership, you can come with us to the Writer's Room. You can also come tune in tonight for Hilly Hijinks, 8 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be playing some games. You guys hit the stretch goal, so we have to fight and play Cuphead. We got to play Limbs. It's going to be fantastic. So click the link in chat or ride the redirect. Guys, I'm going to end the previous stream and bring folks over to the new segment. This is an extended segment for members only, and that includes those who got a gift. I'm going to continue to encourage people to upgrade to Member Plus.